Jews obviously have a disproportionate amount, and far more than the media, probably politically.
I'm not hearing what I'm hiding.
Shut up! Jesus Christ! I couldn't talk to these people. I actually don't know if I could talk to these people. There's no, they don't know how to act like adults. Like Destiny debating Andrew Tate, Nick Fuentes, and Sneeko all at the same time, hosted by Mario Nawfal, who I have less than 0% respect for because of just how much he lies. And then you're like, oh, how'd you get caught in the lie that the Ukrainians are forcefully recruiting pregnant women and turning them into stormtroopers? Oh, was your source also just on twitter.com? Was it just a random account on Twitter? Oh my gosh, it was just a random account on Twitter. What a surprise. And then he does that again and again and again. By the way, the Ukrainian pregnant stormtrooper thing, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. That was something he put forward as a legitimate belief, as a belief that deserved respect. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. Strippers exempt, HIV and cancer patients and pregnant women suit up. Zelensky has signed a new mobilization bill into law that will have the mentally ill, the HIV afflicted, cancer patients, and pregnant women to be subject to mandatory draft for the front line. You want to know how I knew that wasn't true? Because I had seen recent reports about the loosening on people with criminal record if they can join the armed forces. And it was like, okay, if you have minor crimes, you can join the armed forces. If you're a murderer, if you're all these worse people, then no, you can't. And you're going to make me think that they, before taking up the, worst criminals to throw into the fray, they just went for the schizophrenics. So there's gonna be the Stormtrooper pregnant woman division, the Stormtrooper schizophrenic division, and the Stormtrooper AIDS division. And they're gonna have a 3-pronged assault on Tokmak to take it back. That's Ukraine strategy 2025. Mind you, he says strippers are exempt. As in Zelensky wrote into the legislation to exempt strippers just so he could have more cocaine-fueled fun. Complete nonsense. Mario Nawfal fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, but he falls for it literally every time. I thought this reply was a good example of how I view Mario, and how I view a lot of the alt commentators, honestly, on Twitter. Check this out. Jordan told Grandma, "Look what's on the news."
On the parkway. On the park. No. Oh my god. No. Oh my god. No way. On the parkway.
Shadow, you get the best video.
Oh my god. Oh my.
Okay, let's get into the debate. Let's not delay it anymore. Oh, but the reason they're having this whole shindig in the first place is Nick Fuentes got unbanned, and so they're all having a big Twitter space about, yippee, Nick Fuentes is back on the platform. And by the way, the last time I remember, Nick Fuentes was not banned because of like free speech. I said some daring political comment about the white race and it got banned. If I remember correctly, it was because he said some pretty weird things about a woman. If somebody has a good link in chat, I don't remember all of the details because it was like 2021. It was like 3 years ago. I just don't remember or don't care to remember that much. But if the little vestiges I have was that he said some weird things about a woman. I'd have to go back and check though. Anyway, let's check out as much of this debate as we can stomach.
Fired for having an opinion that went outside of the narrative of Fox News?
No, Tucker got fired because he almost cost Fox News $1 billion for lying on air. It's funny that you defend the fact that he had an original opinion. What you're actually defending is misinformation and lies, which is supposed to be something you guys are against, I thought.
Which opinion was this? That's not what I heard. Tell me, please educate me, Des.
Why would you get... I'm sorry, we're just getting started, but why, like, if you know anything about it, all Destiny has to say is, look at the emails. Here is Tucker Carlson saying that he knew people were lying. So he knows that he's lying, and he's going on Fox News and lying. And you want to talk about like Tucker lies? Here's one. He said that for every Russian soldier that dies, like 7 or 8 Ukrainian soldiers die. Completely made up, fabricated numbers. Completely made up. He repeated it on his show multiple times, had other people come onto his show, repeat it. There's a lot of stuff like that. I mean, finding lies that Tucker Carlson told is not hard.
The Fox News, the Dominion lawsuit. There were texts that were leaked from him where he admitted that he was lying on air about claims that Sidney Powell had made to him, and he was tired of lying to his audience about things about the Dominion voting machines being rigged.
Well, I don't know if that's a lie at all.
You don't know anything.
Destiny, I want to understand your worldview.
You acknowledge that your point of view is fundamentally anti-American. From the founding fathers, the framers,
100%. Americanism is a heresy in the Catholic Church. You know that if you know anything. But
Okay,
you get
so
all
then why the
information
f
from media
in this country?
articles.
Why not go live in Rome?
By the way, can I just say, I prefer it like this. I prefer it where someone's like, no, I don't like the freedoms in America. I want them all to go. I prefer that to people saying, actually, me wanting to control your intimate love life and what type of media you can consume and you can't consume, and what type of substances you can put in your body. Like, all this is actually pro-freedom, because like I prefer I reject freedom. I reject this type of Americanism. Christ should lead the way. Amen. I prefer that type of honesty, because I think it's very confronting for a lot of people who drape themselves in the flag, but try to advocate for the same thing, or a milk down version of the same thing.
Or go live in the Catholic Vatican, or go live in prehistoric wherever the in the United States and try to change us into some theocratic regime when that's not fundamentally what the country is about. Make the Muslims in the call answer. Suleiman, Sneeko, and Myron. Nick said he would never allow any Muslim in this country to hold public office. You're chill with that?
But Destiny, I was going back and forth with Nick and Andrew on this. Is that where do you draw the line? Who decides where that line is, Destiny? Good to have you. And I'm sure there's a lot of voices on stage that some you agree with, some you strongly disagree with. But where would you say that line should be drawn?
But wait, I'm on Destiny's blacklist. He cannot speak to me because I'm on his blacklist.
Are we talking
okay.
about for are we talking about for like legal purposes, or are we talking about for platform community guideline purposes, or what do you mean?
Let's keep it more broad. Free speech purposes.
Well, I mean,
where do you draw? Is it so Elon has drawn?
We can't talk. I'm
Okay, so
on
Destiny
blacklist.
is Nick on your black? Do you have a blacklist?
Destiny, have you broke? Yeah.
Yes.
By the way, can I just say, I hate the emoji system on Twitter Spaces. I hate people spamming laugh over and over, or down vote, up vote. And just every time I see like a political conversation happening in a Twitter space and I see someone like spam an emoji 5 times in a row, I'm just imagining like you know what, look, I'm just imagining like Andrew Tate like during this debate, because I watched a few minutes of it to make sure it was not bad enough to like not watch on stream or stuff like that. I'm just imagining as these like emojis are coming up, like Andrew Tate's like, just like Destiny's like, yeah, I think you're stupid, and he's just like downvote, like a grown man, just like tapping it again and again and again, being like, I don't think they saw my first time I put a laughing emoji. Let me put 7 more to show how ridiculous and how stupid it is. It just rubs me the wrong way. It rubs me as insecure. It rubs me as, quite frankly, I can't think of any other word for it, cringe that a grown man would be doing that. Like, it just, can you really, like I'm debating somebody or I'm having a serious conversation and all of a sudden I just go, like, it's ridiculous.
To go.
Give us an exception here, Destiny. If you can speak to
exception?
Nick. If we can have the exception, Destiny, it'd be...
Look, he keeps hitting it again and again. You can see it in the corner. He hits it once, 3 seconds. Hits again, 3 seconds. Hits it again. Like, we get it. His presence amuses you.
We'd be very grateful. But honestly,
the only reason I mention this is like it goes through like every second. Like he just again and again and again.
It's not Destiny. Where do you draw the line? Because Elon was asked that question. I think he was asked. We were doing a space on Brazil. When he was asked that question, he said, "A country's law, even though he might disagree with it, that's that's the line he cannot cross because he's running a business." Where do you think that line should be drawn, Destiny?
Well,
because we've been having sorry. I just want to add one more. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead, Destiny.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, like to say the line is drawn at the law. I mean, is the most boring answer ever. Obviously, and if you're a business owner, you kind of have to operate there. But that's not the only place you can operate, right? Business owners can also make suggestions to Congress. They can have their appearances. They can talk to whoever they want to talk to. They can push culturally for the norms to change. In terms of like where it should be, I mean, I like the United States freedom of speech. I think that sometimes people speak about it in kind of an ignorant way. Like, for instance, when we talk about TikTok, it's kind of funny that people think it's unfathomable that a foreign adversary.
Like, look at Tristan. I'm sorry. This is so. I'm trying not. I feel like old like playground Dylan Burns is coming back, where I just wanted to say like that's gay. Like, I guess it just, that's the impression I'm getting. That's the immediate. And I'm not saying, by the way, okay, I think men are beautiful, okay? I think they're very pretty. So I'm not saying that in a homophobic way. That was the first thing I thought, because a grown man, just down emoji, down emoji, down emoji. It's just stupid. Like, you're a grown man. You're an owner of a big business. You're a sex trafficker. Like, act like one, you know? Be a grizzled bastard. Don't be a schoolgirl spamming because like Nathandra, I don't know, a good schoolgirl name, called your like extensions bad or something, and said your makeup was bad. Like, act like a grown man.
We talk about TikTok, it's kind of funny that people think it's unfathomable that a foreign adversary literally having connections to so many different American cell phones and having their thumb on social media, which we all know is incredibly like influential and important. The idea that that wouldn't be a thing we'd want to avoid as the United States, I think it's an easy to understand idea without needing to invoke.
10. He spammed the downvote 10 times in 10 seconds. Is he breathing? He's again, just imagine Tristan Tate as Destiny Talks just. It's just so goofy. It's the only thing I can think about during all of the pre-watch that I did for this debate. It just got so under my skin.
You know, any kind of weird.
And they're all doing it. They're all just NPC in this. Like, laugh emoji, laugh emoji, laugh emoji. Downvote, downvote, downvote. I think they just don't like the idea of ever giving up the podium for like 5 seconds. Just do it once. Or like spam an emoji that no one's expecting. Spam a fire truck. Spam. Like, I want to just be up there and be spamming the beaver emoji endlessly. Just throw people off. Have fun with it.
Conspiratorial nonsense.
Yeah, Israel.
Cool. But yeah, no, I mean, I like the United States. I don't think we should have hate speech laws. I think you should be allowed to say more or less what you want to say in terms of like legal protections. And then obviously platforms can regulate speech as they want, but I think they should lean a little bit more on the freedom of speech side and just give people the opportunity.
Like, look at it. Now he's switching between the downvote and the laughing, and he's saying that there shouldn't be hate speech laws. Does he disagree with that? Does he think that there should be hate speech laws? Does he think that no one should be allowed to say slurs? Of course he doesn't. He's Tristan Tate, not in the crowd that he runs with. So what is he even responding to? It's just signaling. It's just posturing. It's posturing like a schoolgirl.
Or the tools to like block or mute people if they don't want to hear them.
So my next question, Destiny, my next question is, do you think Nick should be censored?
What, from X or from Twitter?
Social media.
No, I think Nick's pretty harmless. I think if he wants to do his little thing, he can do what he wants.
Okay.
I just got something real quick I want to say with TikTok, because I find it very interesting. Real quick, I just want to say this with TikTok. There was a push to ban TikTok for years on a national security premise because, you know, obviously a foreign adversary has created the app. But I find it very interesting that a bill didn't get passed to get TikTok banned until what? Oh, it was overwhelmingly pro-Palestine, about 70 to 30% versus being pro-Israel. But once it became pro-Palestine and people became extremely critical of Israel, guess what? Oh, we got to pass the bill and get rid of TikTok.
Ed, I know you were jumping in.
So we were talking about Nick's ban. I know you were banned, I think it was 2021 or something, and then Elon actually let you back on, or X let you back on after Elon took over. And then I think it was the same day you were banned again. And is there, like,
although, can I just throw out there, during the Trump term, I think they were talking about banning TikTok or going after TikTok, if I remember correctly. And then Trump reversed his position once he talked to a bunch of high financier types, including those who have direct investments in TikTok, who then changed Trump's mind by saying, here's money, change your opinion.
You know what you were actually banned for? Because I know doing research, I know you had a post where you said, who controls the mind? And it was all these Jewish people in the media. And then you also were in a space where you said, yes, we love Hitler. Like, do we know which of those got you banned?
Well, you know, when I got unbanned, I was under the impression that the new principle was free speech. So I didn't say anything illegal. and they didn't tell me what I was banned for. But I only posted like 3 things. I posted the red media.
I could have sworn he said some like weird, whatever. It like I can't. He doesn't remember it. I don't remember it. No one remembers it. Apparently, Nick Fuentes just stumbled into a ban.
I said I did my Twitter space, and that's funny. You know, you think, oh, you said you love Hitler. I love everyone. I love you. I love Destiny.
I'm sorry, man. It's just such a. Do you love Hitler? Well, you know, I love everybody. It's a cop out that answers the question without answering the question. Come on.
I love everybody.
But it's very different.
Like, why do you need to play footsie with it? Just say like, yeah, man, I think he's the bee's knees, man. I think Hitler's the cat's pajama. Just say something along those lines. Just be blunt. Just don't. Why does it need to be? Oh, I technically love everyone.
But it's very
like, who is Nick Fuentes moderating himself for in this moment? It can't be his own audience. It must be for Twitter more broadly.
2 seconds, guys, 2 seconds. So this is the slippery slope. Hold on. Yeah, I've just. Okay. Yeah, I am speaking, so I'm not letting it go. But Nick, do you think so? First a question, and we'll ask Elon that question on why you were banned, if you managed to drop by. But the question is, do you think that particular statement? So obviously you can't compare loving Destiny to loving Hitler for obvious reasons. But do you think that's the statement that got you banned, or do you think it was something else? Nick Fuentes. And I hope you're not being banned, right? I hope. I don't know if he's rugging or his account just got banned again. I'm being honest. I think it would be funny.
Maybe he's making love.
Go ahead, Destiny. Yeah, go ahead, Destiny.
Yeah,
go ahead, Destiny.
I wish that we had like better freedom of speech defenders. Like, listen, it's the United States of America. If you want to say you love Hitler, if you want to be anti-Semitic, you should be like allowed to say those things. I don't like it when people get banned for being anti-Semitic and then they say they weren't anti-Semitic, but then they also defend freedom of speech, but they won't say those things. It's ironic because all the people that talk about the Jew stuff are like the people who are the most scared to own the things that they've actually said. Like, it's the United States of America. If you want to be anti-Semitic or anti-Jew, you have the right to say that publicly. Like, there's no law against like saying that publicly. Like, champion.
Hey, can I jump in now? My thing was glitching.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I want to answer this. Yeah, so you're right. We cannot compare loving Hitler to loving Destiny. Destiny is far worse.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. Man, look, let's try to last more than 24 hours today.
Come on, that's a good riff. No, you're right. But, well, here's the thing. I think that in those cases, in those edge cases, yes, like we do have to permit people to say things that even everybody disagrees with. We have to permit people to say things that anybody would say, oh, you know, of course you shouldn't be able to say that. That's where it matters. The limits of free speech, that's where it becomes tested. We don't have free speech of the people can say, I like Burger King instead of Wendy's. No, we have free speech of the people can say things that are outrageous and question fundamental assumptions, like about Hitler, like about certain political myths or, you know, how our political system is founded. And so when Destiny says, oh, well, you don't own what you say, it's not about that. It's just about if you are able to discern the tone when someone is talking or what the meaning is. You look at a lot of the things I say, a statement like that is obviously said in a tongue-in-cheek. It's punchy, it's outrageous, it's intended to be. That's the obvious purpose. And all of a sudden when somebody who is like, and by the way, I should point out, while we're playing this game about, you know, you said this, you said that, when I say something like what I don't want to get banned, but when I say something like what I said a year ago that got me re-banned after I was reinstated, everybody looks at that and rightly, well, not rightly, they rightly say it's outrageous, but there's a complete context denial. People hear that statement and they go, he said what? Ban. Because I'm a right-wing guy and I have all these views and I'm like a canceled American. He's got to go. Hang on. I'm making an important point. When Destiny says, I think that the Palestinians should be genocided, ha ha ha. Nobody looks at that and says, oh, he should be canceled. What an outrageous thing to say. Some people do, but he's on YouTube. He hangs out with Shapiro, Jordan Peterson. When I say something because I'm right-wing and it's outrageous.
By the way, Destiny was banned from Twitch for a while, man. Destiny was banned from Twitter for forever. Like Destiny gets banned for stuff. It just depends on what somebody gets caught for. I mean, I've been banned, I've been demonetized for 9-10 months. I still don't know what for. I haven't said anything near either of those statements, even out of context. So I mean, like, I mean, you can get banned for like completely arbitrary nonsense, and Destiny has been banned.
Outrageous. There's no charity. People pretend like they don't know what humor is. People pretend they don't know what rhetoric is. You know, that's just who he is. He's an odious person. Get him out of here. And same goes for everyone here. Same thing happened to Tate. Similar things have happened to Elon. It's happened to Alex Jones. When left-wing people do or say things that are just as bad, just as racist or just as violent or whatever, it's always with them, oh, I'm sure he was joking. You know, Hassan Piker can say, we deserve 9/11. As far as I know, he's still on Twitch. I'm not. But what is materially different from saying America deserved 9/11? 3,000 souls, innocent, were killed. We deserve that. That's a fine statement. You're on Twitch and Twitter, and there's no censorship. When Destiny says, I think Palestinians should be genocided. Ha ha ha. He's still on YouTube. He's still on all.
Wasn't Hassan actually like banned for a little bit? I mean, I think it was still like a general slap on the wrist because it's still Hassan Piker, but I could have sworn he got like a little suspension for it. Got a little no, don't be saying that about 9/11 to him. If I remember correctly. It's been a while for all of these instances.
All these platforms, nobody even thinks twice. When Nick Fuentes makes a joke, or hang on, when I say something like, oh, you know, whatever I said, I don't want to say it again because I don't want to get banned. Oh, well, he's a horrible person. He's an avowed neo-Nazi. Look at what, you know, they're going to reprint the quote like Ed Krasenstein did without the laughing or the tone. And that's BS. Like, let's just be honest. That's everyone can recognize what's going on there.
Just a
quick question, just on that point.
Before that point, just because there was something mentioned, there's it's important sensitive thing. So Destiny, on the joke that Nick, and obviously it's a joke that many will find insensitive, offending, etc. On the joke of you being a more despicable person, I think he said, than Hitler. Now, I think he meant it as a joke. Do you think such jokes, Destiny, you said that Nick is on your blacklist. Do you think such jokes should be censored or they should be allowed? What's your position on that, Destiny?
If you're talking legally, I think you should be allowed to joke about whatever you want to joke about. But again, like the problem again is like the advocates for freedom of speech here are so like boring and dishonest. Like Fuentes is not banned for telling jokes. Fuentes is banned because he jokes about things he actually believes, right? The difference between like me and Fuentes is if you ask me, Destiny, do you think all the Palestinians should be genocided? I mean, if you listen to the rest of that clip, I go, man, it's like a really situation. I don't know how it's going to end. It seems like there's no way out. Like, that's my answer. If you ask Nick, do you really think that like Jews run 70% of the world and the white race is being bred out of existence by mass immigration that's facilitated by secret Jewish financiers who also control all of our foreign policy and make us allegiant to Israel, and they've done this for thousands of years, and that's why they're kicked out of every single... He'd be like, well, yeah, you know, and also, you know, 6 million cookies, right? Like, the difference is Nick isn't joking.
No, but Destiny,
again, like, just own it.
Destiny, quick question. No, but Destiny, like, do you not agree that a person can ask a question, so they can believe in a certain ideological position, and then ask a question that people would find harmful, or find it emotionally hurting? As an example, you said you know you're anti-Islam or you're Islamophobic, and then you make jokes about it. So you can clearly have a position and yet make jokes about it, right?
Well, yeah, no. But if you were to ask me, Destiny, why do you make jokes against Islam? I wouldn't be a pussy and say, oh, bro, I'm just joking. I would say, because I don't like Islam. I really don't. I hate the religion. Like, I would be honest about it. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, they're just jokes.
So let me ask Nick, and this is the thing. So why is and this is the real question people are asking, like, why is Destiny able to make those comments and someone like Nick gets banned? So Nick, same question to you. Your position in terms of
Destiny's been banned for his comments. I think he was banned for the dipshit protester thing. I think he was banned. I don't want to retread all this ground, but he has been banned for his comments.
Whether you believe that certain people run the world or whatever it is, I mean, have you hid from that position? Like, that's his argument.
Absolutely not. No, but here's the difference. People are not saying, oh, you believe that Jews have disproportionate influence in media. I don't think anyone would even disagree with that. I don't even think Jews would disagree with that. Also, it's an empirical question. So people, if they're interested, can go and look it up. You know, it's actually not a completely subjective question. It's actually quite objective. But that's not what people accuse me of. And that's like a very slippery way to frame it. When Destiny says they should be genocided, so of course I don't believe they should be genocided. Okay, fair enough. People watch my speech from a year ago or 2 years ago, and they say, oh, he wants to kill all people that aren't like him. In the same speech, I say, we love everyone. We love even our enemies. We need to pray for them. We need mercy and compassion towards them. We don't need cruelty. I think even in that same speech, not even about Jewish people or Israel, in that same speech, I said, when I look at homosexuals and transsexuals, I don't like all...
Let me be clear. I don't think Nick Fuentes has any ground to be like, we don't like cruelty, we don't like the... He engages in a cruel manner. He engages in deplatforming. He tries to get other people deplatformed. He engages in brigading. He sends his audience from Telegram to go do this type of stuff. It's like, oh, we don't engage cruelly. He engages cruelly all the time, man.
All the cruelty visited upon them. We need to pray for them. We need to bring them into the church, blah, blah, blah. So it's like the same speech where people say, oh, Nick said he wants to kill everyone and all of his opponents. I'm literally in the, as Destiny said with his comments about genociding Palestinians, if you look at the full context, so it's like it's completely misrepresented. The difference is the ADL and the SPLC aren't clipping Destiny's joke and throwing it on social media every time he makes a post. The difference is when an article is written about Destiny, there isn't a preamble that says Destiny, a live streamer who said Palestinians should be genocided, but they do that for me. Every unfortunate thing, joke, exaggeration, whatever you want to call it, always with the most uncharitable interpretation. That is on my Wikipedia. That is the preamble of every article written about me. And I'm not going to hide behind my real views. Okay.
Are you saying that all of that was taken out of context?
Saying that we're going to kill everybody or whatever? Yeah, it absolutely is taken out of context. I mean, we have to give me a specific example.
How many Jews do you think died in the Holocaust? Well, there's a specific. How many Jews died in the Holocaust?
So Nick, just a quick question, right? When you've explained the disparity in
I guess we'll never know.
terms of the rules, like basically Destiny can attack Islam, Muslims, and he's got no problems, and you have been banned. Now, the question becomes, when you know that that's the level of Sophia that we live in, that there is this disparity,
Can I also say, Suleiman, this guy, like, he's like, he has to bend it in every situation. Like, I remember his like interviews with the Tate brothers, just like glazing them the whole time, and he was supposed to be like an investigative journalist. It is not investigative journalism to blow your interviewee on a constant basis. I want to throw that out there. Also, there is a big difference between talking about the ideology of a religion and talking about races and talking about inheritable characteristics. I think there is a genuine difference between these things that makes going after them or critiquing them different. And you know what? I don't want to get too deep into it because we don't have a lot of time. I'm not going to watch this whole thing. I don't want to break down every moment. Point is, I don't think Ahmed is the greatest investigative journalist, or at least the greatest interviewer.
Do you then, like, now you made a joke, didn't you, right? And it was clearly a joke, but now that could be snipped and that could maybe be used to get you banned or whatever it may be. So does that make you become, you know, does that make you become, well, obviously it hasn't, but should it then make you become a lot more careful in even the jokes you make?
No, absolutely not. Because what I have learned, because I've been doing this for a little while now, longer than many people, what I've learned is it doesn't matter, actually, what you say or how carefully you say it. Keith Woods is on here. He just jumped on the space. This is a guy who, I mean, me and my followers, it's like an inside joke that his streams are so, they don't have any rhetoric. They don't have any, there's no jokes. It's very dry. It's all philosophy. This guy is like the most controlled, disciplined, and by controlled, I mean he has self-control, not like controlled op. I mean, he's self-controlled, restrained, disciplined. And even when he got popular last year for the ban, he started the Ban the ADL campaign, hashtag, they dug up like a tweet from 2 years prior where he said something like, sarcastically, oh, I guess I'm a raging anti-Semite because blah, blah, blah. The ADL cut that, and now every time there's an article about Keith Woods, it says, self-avowed raging anti-Semite. One tweet from years ago said in an obviously, I mean, Keith knows the details, so he can reproduce the tweet, but it was so obviously, he wasn't saying, hey, it was obviously rhetorical, it was obviously sarcastic, so it doesn't matter. All the videos, all these dry videos about Platonism and, you know, video essays and articles about birth rates.
It's really nice that Fuentes and all of his racist friends died for our sins.
In a very measured academic way. He said one thing sarcastic one time, they dug in, found it, some researcher reproduced it. Now he forever will be known as the self-avowed raging anti-Semite. So I've seen many things like that. So the question is, do you like self-censor and impose a chilling effect? And, you know, we can't be funny, we can't make jokes, we can't be rhetorical, we have to kind of go through this translator and be, as Tate said at the beginning, you neuter yourself. They want you neutered with the chilling effect from these free speech regulations. Or do you just kind of go out? I feel like I have filled up the room with such a cacophony. Like there's just like this ambient perception of me as this like vaguely horrible person. Now I can say whatever I want. Now I can say whatever. And, you know, and I think people can recognize if they watch my show. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot and then get Destiny's thoughts. I'm going to ask you a tough question.
Sure.
And I'm pretty confident you will not get banned answering that question. But what is the most controversial belief that you currently hold? And the mic is yours. It doesn't matter how controversial it is, because then my next question for Destiny and anyone else would be, should that belief be censored? Should the ability to speak about that belief be censored?
What is the, I'm sorry, what are these questions? You've already established that nobody in the room thinks that a belief or a statement should be censored by the government. Or are we just saying, like, on Twitter, should we be able to just see people just going like, I believe black people should go back in chains? Like, should that be allowed on Twitter? Like, that's a different question, because that's a question of moderation and keeping the environment welcoming and advertiser friendly. These are two separate questions. Like pose that divide instead of just asking, do you like censorship in different ways again and again, which is what he's doing.
Nick, the mic is yours.
Okay. Well, I would say the biggest taboo right now is talking about Jewish people, you know, because I talk about race and I talk about gender and a lot of things. And the biggest taboo is, as we all know, talking about Jewish people's influence. And they could be right wing or left wing. I think, though, it seems like the influence of Israel is maybe the biggest one, because even conservatives talk about George Soros. So I would say it's Jewish influence. And you know, my answer for that is I think that only Christians should be in power in America. And I don't know the details of how you'd work that out in terms of if you pass a law or there's a qualification, but I think that we should have all Christian legislators and Christian presidents and Christian Supreme Court judges. So I would say that's probably my most controversial.
I'd say taboo number one. We've discussed this point in previous spaces. I want to ask you, and Keith, I'm going to go to you in a second, but give me one more, Nicholas.
1 second. Everybody has to indicate their disapproval. Let me give it a thumbs down. I don't believe in theocracy.
And then we'll go, Nick, and then we'll go to Destiny afterwards. The second taboo thing, and I've got a quote here about. I'm going to read out a quote, could be out of context. Maybe it could be the second one when you said it could be a joke as well. We need to go back to burning women alive more. Again, if I took it out of context, I do apologize. But can you maybe elaborate that quote? And could that be the second most taboo belief that you hold? Which I'd be surprised if you actually hold that belief.
I see your co-host thumbs down that one. I wonder, she didn't like that I said I want to burn women alive. That's obviously a joke. And if you look at the whole context of that clip, I said in a very deadpan way, I'm like,
I'm sorry, it's just so, I saw your co-host gave it a thumbs down.
you know, women are casting spells and they're becoming witches. In the Middle Ages, they used to throw them in the river. They used to burn them alive. I'm like, and here they are lying on the stand about, I think in that case it was Johnny Depp. I'm like, they're lying about Johnny Depp casting spells. I'm like, we got to burn these women alive. Obviously, a joke.
Okay, I'd put that in I'd put that in an extremely bad joke, but yes.
Can I ask Nick a question real fast?
Your reaction is what makes it funny.
I would stand as tribute for you to burn me at the stake, but you'd have to be tied to me.
What would be
funny?
Before Ed and Keith, just 2 seconds. So Nick, what would be the second most taboo belief that you hold? And I want Destiny's thoughts on either of these, whether they should be censored. And I'll ask Ed the same question, and then Keith.
Probably my other one is that race is real. You know, I'm a race realist. I think that there's genetic differences between the races as opposed to everything being environmental. So, I mean, and those are broad categories of, like, you know, talking about Jewish people, talking about biological diversity, human biological diversity. That's what people would say is the dissident right. Those are like the two biggest taboo things they believe. And so for me, I guess those would probably be the big two.
So Destiny, these are two beliefs and I'm guessing you disagree with. So should Nick have the right to speak about those two topics on any social media platform, not just X?
Okay, so that's the question. On all social media platforms. Okay, that's at least different than just should it be censored.
I mean, personally, I think that if you're large enough of a social media platform and you're hosting political conversations, I think almost any, like, any kind of mainstreamish, like if more than 1% of people believe in it, there should probably be conversation happening about it. So I would say that everything he's brought up, yeah, you should be able to talk about on most mainstream like social media platforms, assuming political conversations happen here, right? Like if you've got like a social media website for, you know, people talking about, you know, their cats and dogs, then I can understand banning the speech there. But for places like Facebook or X, you know, Twitter, like I can understand people wanting to have those conversations here, and you should be able to. But again, I would like to repeat the same thing I've said a million times. It is so boring that nobody will actually present what it is they actually believe. I don't know if it's strategy or I don't know if it's cowardice, but like
what is it do you think that I'm hiding? I mean,
well,
just
you just
say
said two
it straight
things
up.
that are objectively true that everybody believes in. Like Jews have a disproportionate. Jewish
So
people
what
have
am
a
I hiding?
Jewish people
What am I
have a
hiding? What am I
I'm
what
getting
am I
to it. Well, you
hiding and
finish
not
speaking.
saying?
I can say it. So
Well, I can give a reason why people would hide their beliefs on that.
Well, so
I can give a reason why people would hide their beliefs on that. I mean, Destiny
wait, if you
got
want to hide your beliefs, that's fine. But then say that. Be like, yo, I'm not going to say what I actually believe because I'm not going to.
No, but what is?
You're muddying the waters because
I can't say it. Yeah, I'm just saying.
A lot of people don't.
Go ahead.
There's no sound? What about now? Is it better now? That was weird. Chipmunked for a bit.
And say it.
I can't. Okay.
Go ahead right now.
Say a minute ago that the Jewish thing was a myth and that like Jewish people don't have a disproportionate amount of power in the media.
Who would
and now
say?
you're just saying it's an objectively true thing?
It's two things. Okay. One.
None of them are listening to him.
Jews obviously have a disproportionate amount, and far more than the media, probably politically.
I'm not
surely
hearing what I'm
financially,
hiding. I'm not.
Shut up! Jesus Christ! I couldn't talk to these people. I actually don't know if I could talk to these people. There's no, they don't know how to act like adults. Like God damn.
I'm not hearing
Yeah,
what
you're hiding is
you
you
made
don't
that
think.
accusation 3 times.
Oh
I'm
my
not
God.
hearing an
Can
example.
I finish a sentence? I know you're excited.
Yeah,
to get
answer
back
the
here.
question. You're talking about other stuff.
I'm
Answer
trying
the
to, but you cut
question.
me off like every 2 seconds.
No, you're not. You're going in another direction. Name one specific example because you said it now like 5 times.
Yeah,
oh,
okay,
you're
I'm gonna have
hiding.
to
You
repeat
won't
this.
say
I'm
real
trying to
view.
get my answer.
Like, it's not even I'm angry at the beliefs. I'm angry at the lack of being able to talk like an adult with disagreements. Just Destiny will say what he disagrees with, then he'll get to respond. He hasn't been able to get it out, so the other people are trying to get their spot. This is the problem. Everybody involved here are not trying to have the most productive conversation ever. So much of this is performative. And since you want to perform for the audience, you want to elbow your way in as much as possible, which discourages productive dialogue. But not only productive dialogue, but like comprehensible dialogue when you got these many people and as many of them are as schizo as many of them in this room are.
Say it. Eventually, you'll let me do it. I know you're excited.
Let's
okay?
hear an say the example. Then.
Yes. So the idea that Jews disproportionately represent some part of like the power structures is not the controversial nor the strong claim. That is an objectively true claim that everyone can see. The strong claim is the idea that there is a secret cabal of Jewish people that are working to undermine other races across the world that are coordinating and working through all of those structures of power. That's the controversial belief. That's the thing that you believe in and you preach. But then you come onto these platforms and you give the weak take of like, don't you think that like most of the people's in charge are like kind of more Jewish than like they really should be? Or the same thing with like the race and IQ thing. Like everybody who's reasonable at anything should acknowledge that there's going to be genetic differences, probably even genetic differences between groups of people. But that's not your claim. Your claim is black people are dumber due to genetic reasons on whole versus white people. Like that's the strong claim. You make the weak claim that is like everybody believes in it, but then like the strong claim goes unsaid, and that's usually what people are upset about. Which you can argue is good or bad, but
so
at least like own up, like
okay.
man up and own your positions. Don't like say the most milquetoast, like obviously true things ever, and leave all the controversy, behind you. That's weak.
Yeah, see, the difference is that when you say these things, you're rephrasing them in the liberal perception way. You say, well, if you believe in race realism, that means you believe black people are dumb. No, if you believe in human biodiversity, you believe that there are genetic differences between people. IQ is a heritable trait, and blacks have a lower average IQ on average than white people. That's all.
Okay. That's all he's saying. So there's nothing coming from that, because if all you're saying is on average there's this IQ difference, saying that IQ, by the way, is a good way to measure intelligence, putting aside that question. But if you are saying that, so Nick Fuentes has no opinions about what might be causing that. So if I was to say, oh, I think it has to do with income disparity and systematic racism, Nick Fuentes could be like, maybe, I don't know. That's probably part of it. Would that be his response to it? If you were to ask Nick Fuentes what is causing that IQ difference, would he just say that is inherent about race, which is what I would assume he would say? That is just a characteristic of black versus white people? Or would we talk more about environmental factors? Like what Destiny said is what Nick believes, but Nick doesn't want to say it that way because it's unflattering and openly racist. So he'd rather water it down more so it comes off like a little less it is a bit less racist.
It's also a statistical fact. That's also true in SAT scores. It's also true in IQ tests globally and in America. I've never hid from that. I said that in front of a crowd of black people at Iowa State. I said that in front of Myron. Hang on, and Myron is here. I said that in front of a panel of all black women on Fresh and Fit.
That's a fact.
Because you're just reframing what I'm saying
I'm not
in a
reframing
liberal way.
it.
And you're saying that if someone believes in genetic differences, then that means that you believe black people are dumb.
No,
and if you say that Jewish people influence society, you believe in a shadowy cabal where they're like evil wizards and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
so it's like, of course I'm not going to say the caricature and the reframing that you're giving it because you disagree. You don't like that people find it persuasive. That's why you put me on a blacklist and said,
it's
I will never stream with Nick Fuentes.
Because
but
you're
then
not saying
when I'm on a big space, then you got to show up to derail and disrupt and say, oh, all the persuasive stuff, well, he's just lying. There's secret evil views that he has that, well, you just aren't hearing right now. So that's why you're going to break your one rule. You know, you come on the podcast, even though you quote unquote.
Sneako's being a hype man in the corner going 100, 100, 100. Mind you, Sneako's a Muslim. Sneako, under Nick Fuentes' purview, could not hold public office in the United States if he got choice over the matter, or anybody in Sneako's congregation, or anybody who shares Sneako's faith. And he's in the corner right now, hyping him up. Just hyping him. My goodness. Stockholm Syndrome, man.
With comic book villains.
Because as you said, I do like that movie. Because as you said a couple of years ago, you don't like when people like me talk to a large audience. I mean, you're the one that's hiding a political agenda.
7 people DM'd me to come here, okay? So I decided to come and hang out.
That's my career was over.
This is a real quick reframing. Like,
hold on. Just Ed and Keith, I want to ask you both the same question. Is like seeing that back and forth between Nick and Destiny. Is there anything in that back and forth that should have been censored? Is there anything that could have?
Oh my God!
Hate speech or could have led.
Shut up! It's the same question. Stop asking the same question. Is he just going around the room being like, man, that was a comment. Should that have been censored? Well, should that have been censored? What about me asking if it should have been censored? Should that have been censored?
To violence and should not be allowed on.
This is why Hippy Dippy needs to come back right here, because if this is happening and this is the best we can do, this is pathetic.
On X or any other platform.
Look, I think it should be up to the platform itself. If a platform wants to censor certain types of hate speech or certain types of incitement of violence, I think they should be able to do that.
Even despite sorry to interrupt you, Ed, but despite the amount of influence they have now compared to 10, 20 years ago, like if you give them that right now and they all just meet in one room, they can essentially control speech around the world.
Yeah, but I think that's their right as a corporation. I don't,
Ed, like, what's the platform's primary objective?
The platforms, what platform are you referring to?
All of them. Why do social media companies exist? What's their primary objective?
To make money.
To make money. And you're saying that they should be allowed to ban certain speech they don't like if that allows them to make more money, correct?
I believe, as in capitalism, I believe that's the way it should be.
So if Pfizer came along and decided to give a bunch of money to one of these social media platforms, would they allow anti-COVID vaccine conversations and speech or vaccine injury proof on their platform, or would they censor it to make as much money as possible?
I mean, like, the vaccine, by the way, 50% of the vaccine injury stuff is hilarious. And I'm not saying that to be mean to the people who had actual vaccine injuries. I mean, half of it is somebody who's like, hi guys, I have a vaccine injury. And then I look at them and they're just going like on camera. And it's like, that is not a vaccine injury. You are just, you just have a small brain. Okay. It's not a vaccine injury. Somebody pressed on your soft spot when you were a baby. That's what that is. Okay. But God, man,
I think it's up to them as a corporation to do as they please.
But like, in my mind, if this plot that Andrew Tate is putting forward was to occur, I feel that that would probably lead, if that got out, to the complete discrediting of said social media company. Definitely if it wanted to talk serious political issues. So there would come a serious reputational risk that could hurt them in the market for trying to do that with one of these companies. Would they have the right to do that? Absolutely. I mean, under the current capitalist framework, certainly. But could there be consequences that come with it? Also true. Should they have consequences that come with it? Absolutely. Anybody trying to rig the public debate on any platform in favor of a corporation that has given them money is choosing the dollar over the integrity of the platform, which will give more long-term stability to any good social media platform.
Just like Donald Trump with Truth Social has censored liberals from his site.
That's fine, but we're talking about people getting
I think Elon Musk is.
Dylan, my partner is chronically ill and had a negative reaction to the vaccine. I guess some people are more susceptible, had them all their life. Shit's crazy. What's awful is there are real vaccine injuries, like you're describing, and they need to be taken absolutely seriously. But then I go on social media, and the ones that get like all the attention are the schizophrenic women in their 50s pretending to be vaccine injured, and their vaccine injury entirely consists of them shaking primarily on camera. Like that's not what is typically, that's not what they look like. That's not what a vaccine injury looks like.
Has the absolute right to run it the way he wants to do it. That's like and under his terms, that is, as long as something doesn't break the law, and I guess that can be subjective to some, like what's going on in Brazil. I think that's his right, and I think if that's the best way to run it, that his platform will probably succeed.
Cool. So vaccine, I understand what you're saying. So vaccine injuries do exist. However, the platform's objective is to make as much money as possible, and Pfizer is funding the platform. So they're going to pretend vaccine injuries do not exist. So they are purporting a false version of reality. They are creating an...
That's if said social media company thinks that the reputational risk that they are taking by making such move is worth the money that Pfizer is giving them. So Pfizer is going to have to give them a lot of money. And I mean, if that happens on one social media platform, is that going to be good enough? No, you're probably going to have to go to multiple social media platforms. Because if it blows up on Instagram, it might inevitably blow up on Twitter anyway, even if you try to buy out Twitter.
Aiding the matrix and making people believe a version of reality that is not true, primarily for financial profit. And those with the global centralized capital can control narratives and control the world even at a better level than most political parties. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, unmute, Ed, I have to mute
wait, Pfizer is not even worth that much money. Why would we assume
right?
Pfizer can control speech on...
It's an example. Destiny.
Yeah,
Ed, go ahead.
You keep blaming it on the advertiser or a company that's paying these companies. It's up to the media companies, up to their shareholders, what's in the best interest of those companies. That's how capitalism works in America. That's what I think most conservatives embrace. They embrace capitalism. Let the companies make up their own mind. If one business idea is not going to work out, if people don't like that, they're going to move to another platform. And we're seeing that with a lot of people who are moving away from Facebook and onto X because they don't like this level of censorship they're getting on other platforms. So they move to X. Just like the media, that you can watch Fox News, you can watch News Nation, you can watch, there's a plethora of different media outlets that you can consume if you don't like what one media outlet's putting out there. It's not the government saying, oh, the media can't talk about the Pfizer vaccine or say that it has side effects. If that would be an infringement on the First Amendment. But in capitalistic society, these companies can run the way they want without government interference. So if the government starts interfering and saying you can't run your platform how you want, then that's going to be the government interference, and that's going to be against the First Amendment.
Okay, well, that's another argument because there was Twitter files and there's a whole rabbit hole. People
and the Twitter files also, I mean, the Twitter files showed that a lot of stuff went on. People requested a lot of things to be removed. And Twitter, being a publicly run company, publicly held company, they made up their mind on what they believed was best for their
Let me simplify the question. Do you believe the people, so what you're effectively saying, we agree on the fact that those with the money can control certain narratives and how they're perceived and discussed. Would you agree with that?
Those with money definitely have more control. Yes.
I mean, you don't even need to, like, Andrew Tate went down this rabbit hole of a conspiracy that they would have to presumably keep under wraps in order to, like, control the social media company. Why couldn't they just buy advertising space? Like, on Twitter right now, I can go on Twitter and I could buy advertising space really cheap on the dollar because all the advertisers have pulled out, where I could just advertise my belief system to anyone I wanted to. Control for age, control for job qualifications or their career, control for interests and region and country and language. I could control for all these things. And then I could dump as much money as I wanted to it. And political motivated ads are allowed during Elon's Twitter. So like, you don't need to go this like route loop-de-loop. Like, you could just do that. It's just the other problem is somebody who believes everything opposite to I believe could do the same thing. So, you know.
Yes, and they can control on a public forum how certain things are perceived and discussed because they have the money. And when I say advertise, what I truthfully mean is donate and lobby. That's what they do. They donate and lobby to platforms to get their point of view.
Yeah,
across.
of course, on certain platforms they can, but on certain platforms they can't. Like, let's say X, for example.
Well, absolutely, because it's free speech. So this is where we're going back into the.
What again? If they just buy advertising space, how is that not using their money to spread their influence and try to control the conversation by putting their narratives above yours only due to the fact that they have capital and you don't? Is it because like the other one's more shadowy? Is it because the other one involves a conspiracy that deserves more attention?
I'm only going back over this because we talked about earlier when you guys were saying the primary objective of the media is to make money.
By the way, this is one of the reasons why people talk about like public financing of elections in order to try to take that element out of the public debate every election season. So it's not just a question of who has the most money.
Platforms they can't, like let's say X, for example.
Well, absolutely, because it's free speech. So this is where we're going back into the. I'm only going back over this because we talked about earlier when you guys were saying the primary objective of the media is to make money. And I said,
that is the primary objective. I mean,
okay,
there's really no arguing that.
Okay, well, if that's their case, then they're going to take money from the large centralized power structures, and they're going to purport any false version of reality that it takes them to make as much money as possible, and people who donated the money to make as much money as possible. Objective truth has nothing to do with anything.
If that's in the best interest of the shareholders, perhaps. I'd like to think that shareholders have an ethical side of things too, and if they see that happening, they're not going to be as interested in investing in that company. So, I mean, I think the board of directors and the shareholders are going to have the ultimate say there. And I don't think most people want that.
But Ed, do you think you were censored for money?
I didn't hear you.
Do you think your account, you and Brian's accounts, were banned for monetary purposes? Did they make more money by banning you guys?
Well, no, they were banned. If I remember the reasons why the Krasenstein brothers were banned, they were banned because they were accused of botting, which is a totally different thing, if I remember correctly.
No.
Do you say that contradicts the point
our accounts were banned because
they broke the rules, didn't they?
They thought we purchased our accounts, which we didn't.
No, sorry, what I meant was they thought you did. It wasn't because you had said like an impact on society, and that's the reason they wanted to ban you, right?
They banned me. Yeah, they banned our accounts because they thought we were breaking their terms of service. But I would add that was a business decision that they thought would help the business. So
do you think Andrew? Sorry, Brian. I thought it was Ed. Brian, do you think Andrew Tate or Nick Fuentes, they were banned because the platforms wanted to make more money? Because Stripe wanted to make more money, they banned them.
I mean, I think that's part of it. I think that if you're an advertiser, you don't want your Coca-Cola ads going in front of a segment of Nick Fuentes talking about how 6 million, nonsense. They don't want that. It's not good for their ad. They don't think that people will sit through that and think, oh, I want a nice Coke associated with Nick Fuentes. Advertisers don't like that. I think a lot of users don't want that in their feed. I know a lot of people who don't really enjoy, in fact, I know people who don't scroll through the For You section on Twitter because they just get so much like drivel. Either racist dribble, conspiratorial dribble, and it legitimately angers them to a point, or it makes it such an unpleasant experience that they either just go through the following section, which I would recommend, by the way, and ignore the For You section, which, by the way, sucks because it's a good avenue for getting like creators discovered if you're going to actually try to encourage that on this platform. Like people go to the following section because it's gotten so bad, but presumably people would also leave the platform if it's gotten that bad. And so there can be reasons for both driving off your consumer base and driving off the advertisers, which allow you to profit off of your consumer base. So yes, there is probably some, even though it might be not openly stated, implicit financial interest in wanting to ban people like Nick Fuentes or other people who post similarly, let's just say, outrageous content.
Yeah, I do. I think that they saw them as somebody hampering advertising, or hampering.
And do you think do you think this model is flawed, where advertisers
hampering their image? I think hampering their image, which hampers their revenue, right?
Let me ask
That's just an alibi.
Let me ask a simpler question. So you're saying effectively that mainstream media will lie for money, correct?
Well, I mean, if you lie as a mainstream media outlet and you're caught in that lie.
What did he just say? What the people will lie? Some people will probably lie for money if they have no integrity. I don't know how this is connected to the last issue, but the problem is if you're CNN and you keep getting caught in lies, that's going to drive people away from you. In fact, I bet many people in this call would probably say that part of the reason why a lot of mainstream media companies are losing traffic is because they haven't acted with complete honesty. I think the reasons are multifaceted. I think it's really diverse why a lot of these mainstream media companies are losing traction. But I'm sure many of the people on the call believe that. And so, I mean, I would say that scratching your integrity for $1 is how you become things. I don't want to dog too much on Ukraine right now or go after Ukrainian companies, but that's how you get the Kiev Post versus the Kiev Independent. Now you get the ascendant Kiev Independent and now a Kiev Post that has nothing but its brand recognition. Not saying that it was all due to lying specifically, but if you destroy your reputation or your reputation continues to go down the drain while the reputation of others for being more honest or doing better reporting goes up, that's going to have a negative effect.
Saying effectively that mainstream media will lie for money, correct?
Well, I mean, if you lie as a mainstream media outlet and you're caught in that lie, it's going to hurt you it's going to hurt your revenue.
That's not what I asked. I'm asking, do you, if I use Pfizer because it's the example we used earlier before Destiny has a breakdown. If Pfizer come along and they are...
So, to be clear, he wants to do the scenario without externalities that could derail it and make it unprofitable. But it is the externalities that are motivating many of these mainstream media companies not to just engage in rampant lying. Like if CNN did an article released tomorrow morning at, let's say, 8 a.m. and the headline was, "Alien life finally discovered," right? And then what they meant was, well, actually, what we meant is that this blobfish actually just looks a lot like an alien. Oopsies. That's going to... Immediately speaking, that could make them some money because, you know, you get extra traction. But long term, even if CNN puts out real news headlines about real stories, if people just read it and says, ugh, they're those alien people, this could be just complete nonsense, then people will not click it and not trust it. For example, there are certain news organizations like InfoWars, which are completely destroyed in my mind reputationally, where they could have a headline like "War imminent 5 minutes," and I'm just going to ignore it. I'm going to keep scrolling because I'm going to assume it's a lie. Now, you have to engage in lies over and over and over again. It's not just a mess up here, a mess up there that could produce a reputation like that. But it does have negative side effects, especially if you do repeated lies.
Sponsoring, donating, advertising, lobbying, whatever you want to call it, X amount of hundreds of millions of dollars to your news network, and you're talking pro-vaccine, would the mainstream media lie for money? So yes or no?
I mean, I think that depends on the individual who's making that decision. But I mean, if I was running the mainstream media, I certainly wouldn't. I mean, I think you have a reputation. If you get caught in a lie, that's going to hurt you monetarily in the long run. It's going to hurt you from a standpoint of...
that would be true unless your primary objective was to spread lies and for you to...
Okay, but then that means that the primary objective is no longer to make money. The primary objective is now to spread lies, which then goes against the original thing that Andrew Tate said, which was that their primary objective is to make money.
be paid to spread lies, and as long as you spread the lies, you continue to get paid. Because
that means you would need companies subsidizing you for just the purpose of lying on their behalf. You need to get enough companies to make up for the advertiser revenue that you could probably lose once you're getting caught in these scandals. If you can keep it under wraps, it'd be a miracle. You probably wouldn't, as more and more of these deals come out, as a lot of the people who joined the social media company thinking it was going to be a social media company then could leak information about it being lies, like the Facebook whistleblower leaked information about Facebook. Why that wouldn't happen to this social media company as well, especially as they moved more away from the mission of a public sphere of conversation and free thought to trying to regulate what the people can and cannot see and say, dependent upon what corporations will protect the reputation of corporations the most. Man, this, I don't think you put thought into this at all.
Nobody buys what you
Look
sell.
at Fox News.
Nobody gives a shit.
Why I don't think anybody, none of these companies have the money to
fund them.
solo fund like an entire social media platform. Like, I feel like the analysis stops with, if somebody pays you $100 to lie, will you do it? The answer is yes, but everybody that's a large creator on this platform knows that if you got paid $100 to lie, you wouldn't take it, because if people found out you were lying, your losses would be way more than the little bit of money you'd get paid to do the lie.
Yeah,
That's
and
crazy. People pay you even
man.
though
We're
you
talking
lied about
billions.
your marriage not exploding.
Kind of like, Nick, how you lie about
I think
every
you
single thing
get
you do. So,
paid
for
to
instance, we were
lie
talking about
everything that you
deplatforming, and Nick
say.
is talking
You
about
thought
the
that
blacklist
Ukraine
that
was
we're
gonna
on.
win
The
the
only reason
war.
Nick, by the way, is
Back
blacklisted
to what Andrew was saying.
spam reporting people. That's all.
Dog, I can't even hear what people are saying. I heard Nick Fuentes say that you thought that Ukraine was going to win the war. I don't remember Destiny saying that Ukraine's about to push the Russians out anytime soon. I never remember that point being made by Destiny. Maybe I missed it, but I am trying to keep track of these things.
Andrew, but the what you said is that social. I think the media will lie for money. I think you're right there, and I think Ed cannot disagree. But then, isn't that going to be their downfall? Like, this is not.
Well, this is the thing.
They eventually lose trust.
Well, this is the missing element. They will lie for money, and then we're talking about how that's going to damage their reputation, which has happened. Nobody trusts them. Nobody believes them anymore. And everyone's missing the very obvious point that it's their job to lie for money. They've always lied for money. They'll tell any narrative they're told to tell by the big money and the big finance. That's the only reason
who are
exist
they?
is to lie
Who
for
are
money.
they?
Yeah, the great question. Who are they? Is it just all of the big letter social media companies? I mean, is it the news company? Who is they? Who is they, and who is organizing this conspiracy, and why has it yet not been leaked to the public?
Who are they?
Why?
Like, can you name an individual? Is it the CEO of CNN? Is it, who?
It's global. It's going to change, right? The COVID-19 narrative is different than
so it's no one specific. So there's nowhere for us to go digging. Just a vague notion of an overarching grand conspiracy, which is always the most firm thing to grasp.
Ukraine narrative. Perhaps they're all on the same team, but
the Ukraine narrative. Ah, yes. It's crazy that everybody saw the death pits and thought, "Oof, that's bad." I wonder how.
But you can't beat everybody into maybe. I'm sure there's some people who would lie for money.
Hold on.
I'm sure there's some people who would lie for money. You're right, but to say that the mainstream media would lie for money, like everybody in the mainstream media, their goal is to lie for money, just to put money in their pockets, and they're willing to tell lies. That's ridiculous. I mean, you're judging every individual person.
It's not ridiculous. It's why they exist.
No, it is. It's absolutely ridiculous.
The mainstream media.
How if they promote vaccine misinformation?
By the way, I love it that it's the mainstream media's job to lie for money. Why can't this also apply to alternative media? I mean, there are alternative media platforms that lie for money, that have gotten money from horrific, bloody dictators in order to get people to lie on their behalf. Like, there are state-sponsored groups that go out there to try to capture the alternative media content creators. There are propagandists that try to put disinformation in the feeds of these creators to pump it out there. There are people who get hired by these state media apparatuses to drag them over and get them to work as their subsidiary, as their proxy. Like, this stuff happens in the alternative media space too. Like, in fact, I would say that it's probably easier to get it done in the alternative media space, especially if you're working with individual creators, than giant nondescript media company that's going to have tons of representatives, HR people, and like a whole, I guess you could say, all these mechanisms that you'd have to engage with before, and people that would have to, like tons of people that would have to be quiet outside of like one creator that have to be quiet.
People were all losing their jobs if they were to promote anti-vaccine content or anti.
Like, for example, Mario Nawfal. That dude has spread misinformation. He's the host of this Twitter space right here. He has spread misinformation again and again and again and again and again and again. And there's never any consequences, because who's going to fire Mario Nawfal? Is Mario Nawfal going to call in Mario Nawfal and say you're fired? I don't think so. He's just going to be, oh, made a mistake. We're going to keep going. If he was working at CNN, he would have been fired long, long ago, which is why he's not working at CNN. And he's doing this.
Anti-vaccine misinformation, which has direct harm to the people that are getting these injuries. Like, we're talking about a misinformation that has direct harm to humans. And we're talking, Andrew's bringing up a point where if they lie for money when Pfizer is paying them, which they did during COVID, and then they're not reporting on vaccine injuries, then this is a lie that has direct harm to humans.
Wait, are we saying should those be banned? Should that be made illegal? If you lie and you get paid money for it, should that be like a free speech thing where you're in trouble for that?
Well, here's the pertinent point, though. I feel like we're missing, guys. I feel like we're missing a very pertinent point. The only reason mainstream media exists at all is to lie. I don't know why we're trying to pretend that's not the case. The reason it exists
I
pumped
think
out
that's a
free
ridiculous
everywhere.
I thought it was to make money. If it's to make money, and you can make money by doing good reporting that people want to tune into, then that seems like a more sustainable model than just getting different companies to switch out their sponsoring of your lies on their specific behalf. When maybe you could be getting them to tune in for your real product, which is your viewership, who would want to see the advertisers between your news segments that they can then sell their products to, which is how news companies have always worked to make money.
All of the time and forced on everyone's throat all of the time, and every single lobby everywhere is to lie. They get their objectives that they're supposed to purport to the populace. Their job is to lie. And to sit and say, well, if...
By the way, part of the reason why Andrew Tate needs his audience to never trust mainstream media is because it is also mainstream media that is heavily covering and talking about and spreading information about the fact that he's in deep shit for sex trafficking and all other sorts of crimes. I mean, but you don't even need mainstream media to see that. You can use alternative media sources as well.
They lie, they won't be trusted.
But if his audience never trusts the media sources which is covering those crimes or things he's done, well, then it's going to be much easier to convince them that it's all nonsense. It's all drivel.
Correct. Nobody trusts them. Correct. They've been lying for money all this time. That's exactly where we are. So how is this confusing for anybody?
So Andrew, when does a media outlet become the mainstream media or part of the mainstream media? At what point?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, you have state broadcasters for a lot of countries, and I'm sure that in each different country, you have their state broadcaster with their particular narrative they want to push and enforce. I'm sure the Chinese state broadcaster and the Russian state broadcaster and the British state broadcaster will look at the same series of events with a completely different spin and a completely different narrative that they'll try and push to the populace, which they think is best in their national interest, which means it comes from above. It's not organic. It's not just accidental. They put together the narratives they're told to, and they push it to the population. They're professional liars. That is their job.
Yeah, but don't you think that every media outlet wants to reach that point of being considered the mainstream media, because that means they're the biggest media in the country? So at a certain point,
There's like 5 conglomerates.
At a certain point, you become part of the mainstream media, right?
Those 5.
So at that point, do you just start lying? I mean, it's a ridiculous narrative. Sure,
what's ridiculous to say that there's like a free market for media. There's 5 major conglomerates that own most of the media. So to pretend this idea of like, well, they're rising and falling and they're in competition. There's like 5 major
they rise and fall.
that control most of the media. And there is some, within margin, but nobody would ever say that like some tiny publication that could be founded by an individual is going to blow up and compete with the big 5 conglomerates like News Corp, 21st Century Fox, and Disney.
And they wouldn't let it. And they wouldn't let it. Guys, let's be hyper realistic here. I said earlier about the control of people and influence over people is the only true war. Tanks and bullets are the final last resort to do that. It's much easier to use social media and narrative control and the MSM, etc. to control.
God, can't he just like go back to like telling people how to date women or something? And like trying to like pretend to have knowledge in a field he doesn't have knowledge in? There's nothing worse than a fake guru, man. There's nothing worse.
Control a populace as opposed to putting them all at gunpoint. The idea that you can just stand up and tell the truth.
5 conglomerates like News Corp.
Let's be hyper realistic here. War, tanks and bullets are the final last resort to do that. It's much easier to use social media and narrative control and the MSM, etc. to control a populace as opposed to putting them all at gunpoint. The idea that you can just stand up and tell the truth and you're going to have a broadcasting organization inside of the UK bigger than the BBC and you're just going to talk against the government and you're just going to tell the truth and be Mr. Honest and they're going to let you get bigger than the BBC without catching a fucking bullet is asinine.
Without catching a bullet, they're going to assassinate you before you challenge one of the conglomerates. Why aren't the main conglomerates killing each other then? Is it just a big agreement that we won't assassinate each other? When anybody makes a news company, it starts to go up, they're going to kill them?
What's happening to people who have Twitter accounts? Not just my story, Nick's story, Alex Jones' story, is a bunch of people with Twitter accounts who end up in a cell for having a Twitter account, let alone a...
Really? Okay, Andrew Tate, he's in a cell for his Twitter account. Or is he saying that there's just somebody who's in a cell for a Twitter account? I mean, maybe for like making bomb threats. But he didn't go in a cell because of his Twitter account. He went into his cell because he couldn't stop admitting to crimes publicly, like stealing the wages of his workers.
Look at what's happening to people who have Twitter accounts. Not just my story, Nick's story, Alex Jones' story, is a bunch of people with Twitter accounts who end up in a cell for having a Twitter account, let alone a broadcasting corp. To sit and believe that, oh, who becomes the mainstream and you can just go and make a news channel and maybe you'll get in. It's one big club and you're not in it. And it's control.
So Andrew, you haven't answered my question before. So when you say they, the mainstream media, are you talking about, let's say, Chris Cuomo when he is on CNN? Are you talking, like, is he being fed this information that he's only
I'll
allowed?
be honest. I'll be very honest with you what I think of mainstream news broadcasters. I think they're idiots who are dragged from obscurity and they sit down in front of a teleprompter, and I think anybody can do their job. And Don Lemon's monumental failure has proved that perfectly, because since he left CNN, nobody's given a shit. I think he has 500 views on any of his videos. He's some random idiot they plucked from obscurity, sat him down, he read the teleprompter. It's not about who reads the teleprompter, sir. It's about who decides what's on the teleprompter in the first place. That's the actual discussion we're having here. It's nothing to do with which jackass could sell his soul and sit down and read the garbage.
I mean, it's a combination. Like, there's a lot of editorializing that people like Don Lemon did. In fact, part of the reason why Don Lemon ended up getting fired wasn't just because of his conduct. It was because of, at least partially, some of the editorializing that they didn't like. There is an impact you can have as a host, but it is true that the subjects that you're told, like, you know, we're going to cover today are, you know, that's a big impact on what gets covered, obviously. But I mean, that's also dependent upon on the news. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a team effort. It's
Space Ferret gifted tier 1 subscriptions.
Okay, Dana, but we do need to change the echo. Actually, we're gonna sit down and fix it before the next stream, because that does grind my gears just a little bit. Thank you for the 5 gifted tier 1 subs, Ferret, though. I do appreciate it. You could have gifted it to anyone, but you decided to gift it to me, and it's an air raid at 6 a.m. Oh boy, air raid. Well, luckily for me, we're in the Kiev bunker studio and we're underground. So no matter what, we're safe here. At least we should be. I don't think the Russians have figured out how to get glide bombs to Kiev yet.
Those shows that individual, whoever has that show, they have their team, and they're not necessarily being fed everything they have to say. They're allowed to have opinions themselves.
My friend, and I call you my friend, so you don't get
I'm glad you're calling me
I'm about to call you an idiot. Because you're an idiot, sir.
Tucker Carlson said the exact same thing, that he had basically full editorial.
Didn't Tucker get fired for having an opinion that went outside of the narrative?
No, he didn't get fired for having an opinion. He got fired for not being able to stop lying. And now that he's done his independent show, you know what the truth is? He couldn't stop lying. He's a machine of lying. He's built it into his system. He has to make up aliens and ghosts and ghouls and goblins and fucking his recent stuff of like spirits and like, oh, the government's hiding the spirit ghosts from us. It's insane. It's insane drivel. He brings on people to talk about how they smoked crack and had gay sex with Barack Obama with no evidence, just not able to cite any of the names involved, prevent nothing, and he just takes it all at face value. I mean, come on. He lost Fox $850 million. How much money? I mean, if Andrew Tate lost $850 million in some decision due to one employee, I think he might consider firing that employee.
Fox News
no, Tucker got fired because he almost cost Fox News $1 billion for lying on air. It's funny that you defend the fact that he had an original opinion. What you're actually defending is misinformation and lies, which is supposed to be something you guys are against, I thought.
Which opinion was this? That's not what I heard. Tell me, please educate me. Destiny.
The Fox News, the Dominion lawsuit. There were texts that were leaked from him where he admitted that he was lying on air about claims that Sidney Powell had made to him, and he was tired of lying to his audience about things about the Dominion voting machines being rigged.
Well, I don't know that.
If anything, Andrew Tate should be able to take this and turn it around on Destiny. If he would just to admit, like, oh, you know what? I didn't know that. But if anything, that shows that he had to toe the line and lie, and he was tired of doing it. Why? I mean, why? Like, he could try to turn this around. He could, but he's just too proud. He can't admit that he was wrong. But he could, if he try, he could try to turn it around here a little bit, but I don't think he's got the flexibility. Too much, I guess, bench presses, not enough stretches and yoga.
Lying to his audience about things about the Dominion voting machines being rigged.
Well, I don't know if that's a lie at all.
You don't know anything because you don't read any media. That's why you're out here saying things like they get marching orders from everybody. You don't know how any of these media companies are structured. You don't know where the teams get their information from. People that work in media are the most like social media hungry people in the universe. You think that all these people in all these networks across all these countries are getting fed the same marching orders and nobody's leaked anything, nobody's complained about anything, nobody's said anything? And why do we think that mainstream media is any more insulated from these problems than alternative media is? You guys will make fun of the marching orders from mainstream media, but I bet every single alternative media guy in here is anti-vax, thinks COVID came from a bioweapons lab, thinks that Russia has a right to invade Ukraine, thinks that all the charges against Donald Trump are made up, thinks that we shouldn't be supporting Israel. Like, you guys have literally copy-pasted the same opinions between every single one of you, and you guys are talking like an army of NPCs about how the mainstream media gives you like fabricated opinions. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
Yes, we do all think the truth. That is
crazy.
Wow. Oh my God, he's so brave. So can I just say, if you just take the opposite of whatever the current thing is on every opinion, that doesn't mean you're based and red-pilled and a free thinker. That just means you're allowing the current thing to dictate your opinions just indirectly. Implicitly, you're allowing it to dictate your opinions just in the opposite direction. If every time I say jump, you crouch down, and every time I say crouch down, you jump, I'm dictating your actions just with more steps.
How truth can be a perspective there, huh? But when you all think the same thing, it's not a conspiracy, but when the mainstream media does, it is a conspiracy. Crazy how that works.
I just said that different state-sponsored broadcasters would have conflicting points of view.
But they don't. Do you watch any media? Have you followed any media? They don't typically have conflicting opinions. When you're reporting on international media, the stories are more or less the same.
And a BBC segment, they often directly conflict.
No, very rarely. On the facts, no. Maybe if you're watching a pundit or you're reading op-eds, they will. But if you have any amount of media literacy, a really great example that works.
Russia Today does lie about the facts. I don't know if Destiny's really trying to bite the bullet and RT not lying about the facts, but RT does lie about the facts.
Against your Israel stuff, by the way, was the reporting of that Al-Alasi hospital bombing, where everybody was saying that Israel bombed that parking lot. Every single mainstream media outlet in the world ran with that story for 2 days. I mean, how did that work if Israel controls the media? Or how does that work if they all give conflicting accounts and reports? It's because they don't. It's because everybody relies on, like, people that are reporting on the ground. It goes through their media teams. They publish what they think is right. Sometimes people fuck.
Andrew Tate has reduced himself to just spamming the crying laughing emoji, man. I'm telling you, man. Be a grown man. Use words. Use words in full sentences. You don't need little cartoon pictures.
But there doesn't have to be a top-down conspiracy to explain why.
The Shua did change the headlines very quickly, Destiny.
Yeah, after more information came out. Yes, sir. That's how it works.
When fake news came out.
So naive. There have been so many lies, specifically about wars. It's insane that you would even bring that up. Before the 2020 election, there was a big story about how Russians were putting a bounty on the head of American soldiers in Iraq. You remember this? And they said,
no, God, he doesn't even understand his own narratives. Number one, it wasn't Iraq, it was Afghanistan. God, he can't even remember it. 2 different countries. Okay, I'm sorry. How is he going to bring up the point and then get the country wrong? I'm sorry. I'm just...
that Trump is allying with Russia, who's killing our soldiers. Then a year after, and by the way, that's after the election, they came out and said, yeah, that wasn't true. They came out and said, see, well, we source our intelligence on the ground. Some of it has a high degree of confidence and some of it has a low degree. And this one had no degree of confidence. But it took them a year to correct it after it had already served its purpose. Same thing with the Hunter Biden laptop. They totally put the lid on that one because they said, we were told it's Russian disinformation.
Has donated $5. You gotta listen to the new Kendrick diss tracks about Drake. Honest to God, some of the best hip-hop to release in a while.
Jesus, I can't deal with the echo. I actually can't. It's so discombobulating. Thanks for the $5. I'm not listening to the music though. I don't care about the Kendrick diss track because right now, from everything I hear about, it's right now Kendrick basically said, Drake, you diddle kids, and then Drake responded with like a 3 or 4 minute rap about how he doesn't diddle kids. And I gotta say, I didn't expect the like Frank Reynolds Always Sunny like skit to become reality, where he just busts in, his nose all busted. Guys, we need to make a song about how we don't diddle kids, and he did it. That's what Drake did, which is, I mean, you're in a pretty bad spot if that's what you got to do.
Turned out to be authentic after the election, just like the 40 beheaded babies. 40 beheaded babies, 40 babies, and their heads are off. I can't believe it. And then they found out in December, after Israel had already invaded, after they blockaded Gaza, after everything, they said, oh yeah, that was all fabricated. It's a complete lie. Same thing.
Okay, by the way, right, what's going on right now is speculation. What he's saying is that there were stories that were reported on that ended up not having all of the facts that were necessary to like present to properly show the story. It could be misreporting. It could be poor journalism on behalf of the people who did the reporting. It could be people who are trying to manipulate the press, which is real, of people leaking a little bit but not a lot of it to try to point them in a certain direction, which politicians do that. But none of this is within the idea of this grand conspiracy to manipulate the public through the purchasing of lies through social media or through these news companies. None of this has been proven through this. All that's been proven is that mainstream medias get stories wrong, which I don't think anyone would deny that. You need to prove that the reason that they got these stories wrong is because of this grandiose conspiracy and not because of a combination of not having enough facts, poor reporting, etc., whatever it could be.
With Ukraine, I remember when we debated, they said Russia blew up a nuclear reactor because they're trying to do another Chernobyl.
He's just insane. What is he talking about? Nobody's ever, for the entirety of this war, reported that they blew up another nuclear reactor. They did live fire on a nuclear power plant, which just so happened to be the largest nuclear power plant in all of Europe. They blew up the Novakhovka Dam, which, you know, helped keep that power plant in line through the water stabilization. Look, I don't want to get too into it, but there was never any claim of that. There was claim of them firing upon a nuclear power plant, which did happen.
Turned out that was bullshit. So those are just like off the top of my head.
You got the Afghanistan story wrong. You got the nuclear facility story wrong. Fuentes is on an L streak right now. Let's see how many more I can stack up.
5 examples about 3 different conflicts where, you know, they report it. It serves its purpose, and then they revise it a year later after they got what they wanted. And
what is that even? So there was just like a year where we thought that a nuclear facility blew up in Ukraine and we did nothing. We just were like, oh my God, the largest nuclear facility in all of Europe just exploded. and then a year later we're like, oops, never mind. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
You, because you believe their alibi, because you don't understand the distinction between power and powerless, between government and people, you say, no, I think they got more information. They found out that the propaganda...
One second. You know what? I'll take the second to do this. Russians fire upon nuclear power plant. Here it is. Russian shells nuclear power plant, reportedly on fire. I gotta say, firing and blowing and not blowing up, but catching on fire a nuclear power plant, still not a good look. Definitely when it's during an illegal invasion, and said nuclear power plant is not for the development of nuclear weapons, but to power local communities. I will say, not a good look, pretty bad look.
That they created for their efficient purpose. Oh, they found out that was a lie because, you know, these are just really earnest people like you and I trying to get it right, as opposed to very interested parties in government, finance, you know, wherever you find it. So those are just a few examples off the top of my head. You know, they learn more information, just like in Iraq,
maybe
right?
people just
They
get
learned there were
stories
no
wrong.
weapons of mass
Maybe
destruction
it's
in Iraq.
possible because it happened on the other side too. How many people were saying, "Oh, there's no way that Russia's going to invade Ukraine. That's bullshit. The U.S. intelligence must be lying because Nick said that they lie about the intel all the time." Well, guess what? That happened. Oh, well, there are no fighters in Al Shifa Hospital. That can't possibly be the case. Oh, whoops, we found CCTV footage that shows otherwise. Oh no, hydroxychloroquine is a way better drug than remdesivir. Like, oh, this is going to be the ivermectin is going to save all of us. Oh, looks like none of that was true. Oh, you know, people get things wrong. Some people lie. Like, you have to be intelligent enough to call out fault. That wasn't even a syllogism, dipshit.
That's a false syllogism.
No, that wasn't even a syllogism, dipshit. Listen, people get things wrong sometimes. You have to be more intelligent. You've got to be more sophisticated when you go through media, and you have to understand sometimes people they get shit wrong. Sometimes people do lie, but why the you trust people who in alternative media who are like teams of like 1 to 4 highly ideologically driven people versus entire media conglomerates that are being fact checked or have like, you know, dozens or sometimes hundreds.
Look, I'm in the alternative media space. I want alternative media to thrive. But having only one person or literally no one fact checking you as you're pushing out these stories, that's how Mario Nawfal keeps misreporting this stuff over and over and over again, because he sees something on his feed that maybe aligns with his preconceived notions, or he thinks it's going to be a good headline, grabs it, reposts it before even thinking to checking if it's real. If he tried to do that at CNN, he'd get smacked down by the first person who saw what he was trying to do. Not saying CNN's perfect, just saying that Mario Nawfal's fact checking is worse than CNN's, and it's because he has nobody checking him.
Of workers in some of these offices, like the ability for you to lie about something is going to be way higher.
Involvement? How much do you know about the CIA's history of influencing media?
What an amazing question. I don't know. How much do you know about?
I often don't hear people like you and Ed and Brian digging into the history of the national intelligence state directly influencing media.
Because
like
history is different. Like, if you want to talk about U.S. foreign policy between like the 40s and before the, you know, the fall of the Soviet Union, that's going to be a different type of foreign policy, a different approach than our foreign policy over the past like 34 years. Also, the ability to sneak or hide different things is going to be different when everybody is carrying around a video camera and a recorder. Like, the ability to do things covertly is a lot easier back in the day when people were writing to each other, or
I have to go. I have to go. So I want to ask.
Buried. Yeah, do your thing, Andrew.
Sorry, brother. I have to go. So I just want to ask a really quick question. Destiny, I want to understand your worldview, because you and I have a different worldview, it seems, especially on girlfriends, etc. But we won't go down that path. Do you think it would be prudent and professional for a country to allow its state broadcaster, which speaks to its populace, to report whatever?
So I was muted during all of that. What I was just saying is, like, during the entirety of this conversation, Andrew Tate came off as a Neanderthal. He hasn't earned the right to go after Destiny's relation. I mean, I don't think people should go towards people's personal stuff at all. But since he hasn't done the legwork, it seems like he's going for personal attacks because he couldn't stay above water. He was out of its depth. He should be in the kiddie pool, not the deep end.
Whatever it wanted and whatever it discovered without any kind of moderation or input, even if it was directly adverse to the goals and aims of the national security of said country or the military-industrial complex of that country? Do you think they would allow the state broadcaster to just report whatever it wanted fairly without anyone telling them what to say or any narratives to hold, even if it's directly counter to the interests of very powerful entities within that nation? Do you believe that we operate in a world that fair?
Yes, because confidence is a valuable thing, and if your country doesn't trust you, doesn't trust the media, if it doesn't trust the leaders, and if you've got ways to hold them accountable, like via voting, then yeah, if you fuck.
Dog, how did Andrew Tate lose to both Hassan and Destiny? It's like, come on, how do you lose to both? How do you get both ends of the spectrum of like the political internet? Just that's raw dogging you.
Around with your population and people find out, you're going to be held accountable for it. Arguably, that's why Trump won his election. You know, you can say that like, oh, well, the media lies to everybody and everybody lies to everybody. That might be true. Fine. Then why the fuck should we believe anything any of you guys say, right? At that point, you're in an epistemic, nihilistic black hole of nothingness where you can't believe anybody.
The fact that you believe a country X, will have military aims, it will have agricultural aims, it will have political ambitions, it will have trade aims, whatever they are, to compete in this globalized market, and they need their population to believe a certain point of view to be as competitive as possible against the other nations, and they're just going to allow their state broadcaster to broadcast whatever they want, even if it's counter to their own narratives and interests, is so ridiculously naive. That's not what happened.
It's not naive. You don't even understand how markets work. You know what naive? No, hold on. Naive is thinking that companies with a market cap of $100 billion have
no. Speak over him. Speak over him. Speak over him. Andrew Tate's the type of person you gotta speak over, because it gets under his skin more than anybody else's. The idea that he could be disregarded or pushed aside verbally, just more than anyone else in the world. Talk over Andrew Tate constantly.
Starts talking about war with Russia. In the UK, only a fucking couple months ago, endless war with Russia, conscription, how it needs to happen.
Can I just throw out there first? Number one, call it endless war if you want, but it would be the Russian endless war. Nobody in Russia says, oh, remember our endless war in Vietnam? Remember when the Russians fought their endless war in Vietnam because they sent aid to the Viet Cong? Nobody says that, because they weren't the ones in the forest dying, even when they said scientists and other agents out there to do work. Everybody else was dying. Do you know whose endless war it was? It was our endless war. It was our endless war. Us spending 0.5% of our GDP, 5% of Pentagon spending to send stuff over there. Much of that spending being sent to replace their own gear. Much of the stuff that's sending over being
_Packer has donated $5. This is what Nick's been doing the whole stream.
Thank you for the $5. God, I hate that echo. Danabo, once the stream's over, we're immediately sitting down, we're fixing it, okay? I don't ever want to hear that again. It is, oh, God, it's ringing in my ears. God, this is why I don't like it. I lost my train of thought. I was saying something, I forgot it now. God damn it.
On a dime, all of the BBC, all of the British news starts talking about how important it is to go to war with Russia, because that's the aim that they had from their military-industrial complex. And the broadcaster and the media arm of the government works directly with their foreign policy aims. It's all directly going together. Not a single newspaper printed, this is dumb shit. Nobody should go to get their ass whooped by the Russians.
I mean, number one, I think saying ass whooped by the Russians, I think, is a little rich considering the last 2 years of war and what we've seen. Just saying. But also throwing that out there, that while the Ukrainians have been fighting off the Russians for all this time, there has been a rampant debate in the public sphere about the support for Ukraine across all these different media companies about, should we support Ukraine? If we do support Ukraine, how much support should we give Ukraine? And if we do support Ukraine, what should our end goal be? And what's our end goal? How do we get to the negotiating table? And if we're on the negotiating table, how are we going to act? Are we going to negotiate on behalf of them? Are we going to have the Ukrainians at the table? All of this stuff has been rigorously debated by think tanks, by news companies, by opinion journalists, by bloggers, by all sorts of people in the public sphere. And it has made the support for Ukraine go up and down, up and down, up and down. Always been in the majority, at least in the United States, or at least the plurality if we're talking about some Gallup polling. But still, Like, it has been a vigorous debate. Now, the government, of course, wants the people to...
X-Rain has donated $5. Echo.
I had a point. It's gone.
Not a single one, because they are not allowed to.
If that's the case, then why didn't Trump shut down all negative media about him when he was president? If that's the case, why didn't Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or Barack Obama shut down all negative media about them? You guys bring up the best counterexample to you is that Hunter Biden laptop story. Why did that get censored for one day? Why wasn't that story completely
that
killed?
Wasn't heavily suppressed.
Yeah, no, wait. Why wasn't that story killed completely? That is the most talked about story. Your example of media censorship is like the most talked about story in the past 10 years of online media.
It's talked about online on social media, yes, but it was suppressed in the MSM, which is the exact point.
No, it was suppressed on Twitter. The New York Post story, the big deal about that, the big deal about Twitter was, the big deal about the New York Post story was it being suppressed on Twitter and Facebook, but it came back in like a day. So the question is if the government, was able to control things so well, why didn't they shut that story down completely?
Destiny, let me ask you a question on that. Isn't that because they censored it because there was a specific reason to do so? Because the reason you censor it is because you want the election to go in a certain way. Once the election's over,
didn't the intel agencies tell them to do that? Didn't the intel agencies tell them to suppress that?
No, if you actually read the Twitter files, I know how much you hate reading. If you actually read them,
experts.
No, they didn't. No. Nobody told Twitter to censor the New York Post story. They literally leaked the emails where they talk about censoring the story. I don't know why you guys say the intelligence agencies told them to do it.
So all of the mainstream media all ran with "this has been debunked," and they all cited the letter that came from the National Security State, which was signed by 51 intel operatives.
They didn't say that it was debunked. They said it looked like Russian misinformation.
Exactly.
Which, if you're honest, it did. But it did.
They started all of their articles with that statement in order to frame it in the exact same way that Nick was saying.
By the way, it did, number one. And number two, there's a good, I would even say a very good chance that it was handled by the Russians. That doesn't mean that there's not anything true in it. Some of the best information at warfare is not when all of it's a lie, or like maybe 80% of it's true, or maybe all of it's true, but you're the one that get it and leaks it to the public to undermine your geopolitical opponent. To try to deny any of the markings of a Russian information operation here, that's just a disconnect with reality. That's not saying that there's not any truth to anything that Hunter Biden might have done or anything. No, it's not saying that. But to try to deny that, that's just a bunch of hooey.
Every article about Nick is framed by the first sentence being Nicholas J. Fuentes, this, evil things, so that when you read the article, you're pre-framed to believe Nick Fuentes is an evil human. Or
no, it's not even remotely the same. It looked like a fishy story. Any honest actor, like, I'm pretty sure at this point we all know the laptop story is real, but even looking at it, it's
like
that
a
is
fishy
a
story.
Yeah, obviously. I'm sorry. Hold on. The idea that Hunter Biden dropped off a laptop years ago to like a blind computer store owner, yeah, that is a sensational story. That sounds like bullshit. It still sounds like bullshit, even if it's true. But again, like, the deep state has so much control sometimes, like censoring stories, but it couldn't have prevented the New York Post from publishing it. Why? It couldn't go and like take that hard drive out of Giuliani's. Giuliani had balls. Oh my God! So it only takes one journalist to shut down the entire. Also, by the way, like a quasi-mainstream media journalist. This is the New York Post. It's not like we're talking about like a small YouTube channel or something, right? So even the New York
published that story, and then the entire media narrative had to shift in order to discredit the story as quickly as humanly possible. And the entire national security complex mobilized and got 51 of their top experts, like ex-director of the CIA, ex-director of the NSA, the people that had architected their entire national security state, the people that had lied to us about torture, that had lied to us about WMD.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, so he means some of the people. I don't think he means all the people, but there were people on there that lied about it. I don't even know what he just said people in the security state. And what he means is that there were people who did different works in government positions, working within the intelligence agency. And so since they worked in the intelligence agency, they're liars. That's the position. Just to be clear. They're liars because look at all these times where people who worked in a similar field lied. Okay.
Talk about things from 20 years ago, that's fine, but the reality is, and look who broke it. The most mainstream media people in the world. Giuliani had a copy of the drive. This is a mainstream ex-mayor of New York, and then the New York Post, a mainstream media publication. Giuliani was not mainstream. How old are you?
So let me ask.
No, wait. I want to hear the answer. Wait, hold on. I want to hear this. You don't think the New York Post counts as mainstream media, and you don't think Giuliani wasn't a mainstream political figure in the United States of America?
New York Post absolutely counts as mainstream media. What I'm saying is that a singular journalist got the scent, got the trail, and decided.
By the way, it's not just say a singular journalist. He's being coy here, because as we talked about earlier, these media companies are not singular people. They have to go through a managing editor. They have to go through your boss. There's different layers that they have to go through before the story got published. So you could say it's the bravery of a single journalist, but no, it'd be the bravery of the journalist. It'd be the bravery of the managing editor. It'd be the bravery of the publication as a whole. It'd be their continued bravery as they continue to hold it up despite backlash. Like, it wouldn't just be like the journalists themselves. If this is a YouTube channel or Twitter account, maybe it'd be different, but we're talking about the New York Post here.
To write the story.
But I'm asking, how is that possible? And that was a mainstream media publication. How would that be possible? The CIA and the NSA and the FBI are controlling all these things.
You clearly haven't done a lot of research on how the CIA actually do influence.
Ian, your mic is really bad, but just so what you're saying, Destiny, is that the letter that was signed by...
Quick, Mario.
Go ahead, Keith, go ahead.
Saying is that when you actually research how the CIA influences journalists, it's not like journalists are literal robots where the CIA has a literal game controller where they actually like move their mouths. They peddle influence through payoffs or through like promotions or through just making friendships. Like, it's not as simple as just saying we literally control everything that everyone says. That's not how the world works.
No, it's not. Hold on, no, wait. It's easier to censor one story by like contacting a journalist and threatening his family than it would be to falsely get like every single intelligence agency or like 51 different officials on board with censoring a story. It doesn't make sense. It would be way easier to get the one journalist guy like to just like show up at his house and steal the drive.
Experts work for them.
Well, hold on. Well, Comey works for them. The DOJ works for them. Why did they pursue the email investigation with Hillary? Why didn't they just kill that immediately? Why did Comey ever make those announcements publicly? It hurt him a lot. Why did this story with the DOJ with the special prosecutor come out with Biden being senile? That hurts him as well. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that they report on themselves on that doesn't make them look good. Is it all plausible deniability?
Dustin, I have a question. I'm curious.
Okay, go, Andrew.
I'm curious. Do you believe that in China, the state broadcaster can just broadcast whatever it wants and whatever it discovers, or do you believe it has to work within an official narrative from the government?
In China, I think they probably have to work with official narratives within the government. This media probably works closely with the state.
And what about in Russia?
Yes. For publications like RT, yes.
Saudi?
I don't know as much about Saudi media, but that would be my assumption. It's a total monarchy, yeah.
But in the West, not at all, 0%, right?
Well, it depends on the country you're talking about. Like the BBC gets state funding. I don't think they get state direction. PBS gets state funding. I don't think they get state direction. I think in general in the West, I don't think the media tends to operate at the behest of the state. Whereas like in monarchies or dictatorships, you tend to operate more with what the state is telling you to do. Yes.
Well, we could ask why you'd get state funding without state direction. That's one question. But so you're
because of legislation from Congress that authorizes state funding.
I've counted 11 laughing emojis from Nick.
I mean, it's not really a huge conspiracy.
Of course, yeah, they just give money for nothing. Yes, fine.
14. He did 14. He just went like this once, and I'll even count it. It's ridiculous, man.
Money for I'm sorry. Do you think the most wealthy broadcasters work for PBS and NPR?
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because I want to try.
I know you don't.
I want to try and get to the end of the point, especially because I'm driving. So do you think that would allow a country to be competitive, considering that you need to have narrative control over your populace, and that we now know, and everyone in the West accepts, that China has narrative control over its populace via the state broadcaster, as does Russia, as does Saudi Arabia, as do all these other countries, and that having a news broadcasting apparatus which told the truth, even if it's against national security interests, would not allow you to be competitive as a nation?
By the way, we had this type of stuff. We had this type of stuff. I believe it was during the Reagan administration. These we made funds specifically for the purpose of sponsoring efforts that we thought was beneficial not only to the interests of the United States but also ideological interests. We put money aside for it. We did stuff with like Voice of America overseas during the Cold War. We funded different NGOs and journal. But that stuff that is now done, generally transparency, where you can go look at the grant data, right? That's not what we're talking about. And that you can like make an oh, we gave money here, we gave money there for the purposes of blah, blah, blah. But that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about media companies generally. Like, if we're talking about media companies generally, do I think that NPR gets direction from the government in the same way that Russian state media or Chinese state media do? No, I don't. Do I think they can be affected by the American perspective? Do I think that the intelligence communities can attempt to manipulate even public or private media institutions by either giving them exclusive links that might not be completely truthful in an attempt to give them the big story that they want to grab? I think stuff like that can happen, certainly. But we're talking about the direction. We're talking about media being directed to act in a certain way by the government directly, not through either subversive like CIA opera. We're talking about direction, which is different than cultural diffusion affecting it or normalization. Like it is different. It's different.
Nation state. Do you think that we're going to allow that to happen just because I don't know, we care about truth so much?
No, because the West doesn't run the world because they dominate the narrative. The West runs the world because they dominate it militarily and economically. People don't like the United States because we've got the most bought and paid for media. They like the United States because we have the strongest navy that guarantees the most free passage through water. Because when the Houthis start firing missiles at people, it's U.S. destroyers that show up and save the waterways. They like the United States because we are a massive trading partner. We have the highest GDP in the world at this point, and we buy and sell goods like crazy. That's why people like us, not because we poison our media, but because we actually put out good results. You can't control the media. You can't media frame the way out of like horrible participation in a world economy. You just have to like actually be able to put up the numbers.
No, I don't think you understood the point I'm asking, because America as a country is in competition with other nation states, right?
No, but we don't compete on who can control the narrative. That's shit you do on Twitter and YouTube. We compete on who has the highest number of exports. We compete on who can facilitate like the largest like multilateral trade deals. We compete on who can.
Okay, so there's like a middle, I don't want to call it a middle ground because I'm like 80-20 middle ground maybe. But the American government, again, like I said, has before through like executive orders during the Reagan administration made it very clear that they want the American people and they want America's interest in the rest of the world to be encouraged through media. And they will do that through government appearances, through funding of certain of media groups. But all of that now, post-Cold War, is largely transparent. There might be stuff that we aren't seeing, but that's just rabid speculation. And at that point, I don't know, I speculate that Mario Nawfal is an MI6 agent. I speculate that Andrew Tate has so much dirt on him that he's been recruited by the Russians long ago. I can speculate nonsense all day. So it's a question of like what we can see and what we can't see. And there is nothing that has given me indication that in the same way that Russia and China dictates terms for what is covered in state media, that happens in NPR or the BBC to the same degree, or anywhere close. Like, there is, I think, like social pressure. There is the fact that it comes from a certain perspective. I talked about already, like how intelligence organizations might try to leak or selectively leak information, but this is different than being directed what to do.
Guarantee safe passage through waterways, and people start blowing each other up. Whose military is going to show up to make sure that your ships are safe? Those are the things that we compete on.
Cool. Understand. So you think that America has no vested interest in controlling the narratives that its own population believes in, although the CIA spends basically unlimited money ensuring that vested interests are installed in every other nation state around the world. They don't care about their own at all.
Yeah.
They don't care about what Americans think at all. They just care about what all the other countries think. Yeah,
if you think the CIA spends unlimited...
Dude, I'm telling you, man, the CIA would be a lot more powerful, and I'd believe it, if we didn't just have to have 6 months convincing the space laser, trying to convince the space laser lady of the importance of Ukraine aid, to no effect, to eventually just have Mike Johnson cave anyway, passing the same legislation. Like, if it was true that the CIA had all this power and is going to protect all these vested interests so viciously, Marjorie Taylor Greene would be dead in a ditch, right? And it's not saying that they don't do it in other ways. It's just saying that I think there is an amount of power and overarching omnipotence that is being assumed of our intelligence agencies that shouldn't be.
money. It's because you don't know what unlimited money looks like, and you have no idea what the scale is between like CIA spending and spending of companies like Facebook or Apple or Microsoft or Amazon. Like, if you guys at least were to come on and say things like, I think that all of our foreign policy is being ran by the people that control like Apple and Facebook, that would at least make sense. But by companies that are worth, you know, like tens of billions or like $100 billion, no, absolutely not. And also, no, the reputational hit you would take in a democracy when you elect your leaders and people catch you lying about stuff or fabricating stories or controlling the media. No, I don't think you.
Them lying. We never called them lying.
Is this supposed to be a death measure?
Nobody ever said. Hold on. Nobody ever said. Nobody ever said they never. Nobody ever said. Nobody
influence other populations, but they have no interest at all in influencing the minds of their own populace. No, they just care about trying to influence everybody else's with their democracy and all the garbage they're doing when they're pushing it. And you're saying they don't control the narrative, which is also another rabbit hole we need to go down to.
I mean, technically, your story isn't even contradictory, even if I let you have that, because technically Americans don't really give a f happens in other countries as much as their own. So you could get away with influencing other countries more than your own. Yeah, of course. But the reality is that like if you get caught doing these lies, you pay huge fucking repercussions for it. Like a lot of the country's politics
for COVID.
What have they
paid for COVID? What have they paid for the Vietnam War? What have they paid for the weapons?
For the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was politically damaging. What do you mean? What do you mean? The Vietnam War was a political catastrophe. McNamara was like when we hear the name McNamara in reference to foreign policy, it is not in complete reverence of his management of the Vietnam War. I mean, there was consequences. There was okay, whatever.
What do you, the media coverage for the Vietnam War was harmful to U.S.
Like that type of whatever. I don't even like consequences. How much as they should have been? No consequences politically, certainly.
That's one of the reasons why we left Vietnam. If we controlled the media, we would have stayed in Vietnam until we saw it through. Media pressure.
And true, it was oh God, what's his name? Is it Walter Cronkite reports during the Tet Offensive? The Tet Offensive was a massive failure for the Viet Cong. They did not take the objectives they wanted to. They took massive casualties, lost a ton of equipment. It really staggered them. From a strategic position, from a strategic view, the Americans won. We won the Tet Offensive like no holds barred. We won it straight up. But because of how it was presented, because of how the American people saw the Vietnam War, because of how Walter Cronkite presented it, because of a whole bunch of other factors, just due to the length of the war up to that point, like the Tet Offensive was, from a PR perspective, a disaster for the West. And we allowed these news companies to report it that way. Hell, we had, what was it, what was her name? Jamie Foster, I think, went to the Viet Cong, interviewed them, did press with them, and it happened during the war, and it pushed us against continuing to fight it, and we eventually left Viet Cong. We eventually left Vietnam, and the war was lost. Or, well, depends on how you talk about the negotiations, but you get the idea.
Pressure was one of the reasons we left. Look at how unpopular the Iraq war became. You don't think Obama wanted to take a more active role in the Middle East? He couldn't, because the American public fucking hates everything in the Middle East after the Iraq war. What are you talking about? Yeah, American public heavily influences our capability of operating in different theaters of war. After Iraq and Afghanistan, we have no appetite for it.
Okay. Is this supposed to be about being unbanned, or is this about the #1 fucking news media truster to defend the State Department's agenda? Like, I don't even know what this is about anymore.
Yeah, I want to jump in here. I mean, because I thought
By the way, someone went like to the idea of Obama wanted to do more in the Middle East but couldn't because of public backlash. He wanted to go in and bust up Assad and couldn't because he didn't have the votes for it. That's well-known history. I guess, I don't know if it's might not be well-known history because none of these guys know it, but I don't want to judge what is and what is not well-known history through this control group.
The purpose of this space was discussing Nick's censorship. I mean, this is like a civics lecture now from the Krasensteins and Destiny. Like, it's really interesting. People might not realize this, but yeah, Destiny has blacklisted Nick for the last few years to try and stifle his popularity.
What do you mean? Wait, why would I blacklist him?
Hold on.
Yeah,
hold on.
Keith, question. Yeah, question to you, Keith. Because I asked Destiny the question earlier. How did he blacklist him? What does that mean?
Why did I blacklist him?
Yeah, so Destiny refused to stream with Nick. He didn't want to help grow his popularity. Nick comes back in a day. He surpasses him on Twitter followers. And Destiny goes back to his old tactic of showing up on a Nick stream and reading Wikipedia articles, trying to make him sound bad to his guests. I mean, the central point here is supposed to be Nick's censorship. And, you know, Destiny makes this point. He's like, oh, well, these people, they defend free speech, but then they don't want to come out and be honest about their beliefs.
This is the easiest truth test forever, right here. Like, tell me, why did I blacklist Nick? Can Nick or you admit it? Can either of you admit it? No, you won't. You're going to keep pivoting.
Is he just going to keep interrupting me? I mean, he's been speaking for the last like hour and a half, dominating this space.
Make him answer the question.
Go ahead, Keith. Yeah, answer the question and then continue, Keith, with the point you're making.
So Destiny says, you know, they get censored, they send them for free.
Oh, God, it's painful. Oh, my soul, it hurts. It hurts at the dodging and the weaving and the dipping and the old pudding pop. God, so much dodging. Jeez, come on, just answer it. Just answer it. Come on. Come on. Either say I don't remember, remind me, or just say what it is. Right? Don't run away like a mouse scurrying in from corner to corner.
Speech and they're scared to come out with their beliefs. Well, he's ignoring the fact that Destiny got his followers to mass report Nick in I think it was 2019-20 to get him banned off Twitch because Destiny is aware of this.
This didn't happen. He's lying and he didn't answer my question.
I'll go back. Destiny, I'll go back to you to respond right after. Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, Destiny got his followers in the past to mass report Nick, to get him banned, to take away the competition, because he knows this double standard exists. And, you know, Destiny will come on these streams and he'll say, of course I believe in free speech. And in the past he said, well, you know, look, you're going to get censored if you say shit people find offensive. That's just kind of how society works. Like Nick said, Destiny has said, you know, Palestinians, I'm fine with them being genocided. Hassan, who's probably the biggest leftist streamer now, I saw just a couple of weeks ago, he posted the schematic of a weapon as a quote tweet to a politician, suggesting his followers should engage in violence against the politician. Now, there wasn't an SPLC hit piece, there wasn't an ADL hit piece shopped around. Because
to be clear, it was the retrofitted gun that was used to assassinate Shinzo Abe.
They know there's obviously a double standard that operates here. This isn't some free market where the companies are looking at these individual streamers, these individual personalities, deciding who to work with. I mean, Nick used the perfect example during Bandy ADL. All of these mainstream media outlets rushed to get this out, that, you know, of the 10,000 tweets I've made, that they found one that was a joke about being an anti-Semite and self-avowed anti-Semite. I can give her another.
God, I don't know who this person is, but he's contributed nothing.
Another example. Recently, I was censored off a couple of payment processors after a Media Matters hit piece. Media Matters hit piece references an SPLC hit piece that says I'm a Holocaust denier. Now, I've literally never made a public statement about the Holocaust in my life, right? It's illegal in most of Europe. Who's even talking right now?
Who is this guy?
But that is shopped around. Leftists send these to payment processors. They send these to platforms.
Did they include sorry to interrupt, did they include a quote or did they?
Keith Woods. I don't know who that is.
Just make that statement without any quote, without any...
No, the original article that it goes back to, which is shopped around to all these various outlets now, there's no link, there's no quote. It's just put there by leftist activists. That is used to censor people. And what you realize about censorship is, you know, there's no debate or discussion going around here. These employees get these pieces handed to them by organizations that are supposed to have a reputation, like the ADL, the SPLC, and they just hit the button. And, you know, it's easy to come in with this kind of sort of naive, pluralist worldview where we're in this free market of ideas and companies are just...
All right, we got the philosophy lesson. Why is Nick... Why did I blacklist Nick?
You blacklisted him to stop his popularity.
Okay, so...
If it wasn't for Destiny, Nick Fuentes would be so popular. And that's why I did it. Look, wasn't Nick Fuentes supposed to be on like Kanye West's presidential campaign team? Wasn't he supposed to go all the way to the goddamn White House? And Destiny is the guy that's crippling him? Destiny, by not having Nick Fuentes on his stream, was crippling him, or that was the strategy? If Nick Fuentes has not found success yet, it is not due to a lack of opportunity.
I blacklisted Nick because I'm a big free speech advocate online, and I have been for, I think, probably like 6 or 7 years. And
did you direct your followers to get Nick banned?
And Nick Fuentes, I haven't tried to get Nick banned in like 7 years. I had a huge conversation with him on Twitch. I was part of the hosting of that conversation. I didn't try to get him banned.
Your followers to mass report Nick.
Like 8 years ago. Yeah, my values have changed since then.
It keeps changing. It keeps changing.
No, I haven't changed it. I literally hosted a huge debate with Nick. But the reason why Nick is blacklisted, the reason why I blacklisted Nick is because as of a year ago, Nick and his group of people spam report people. You can go and watch it on the Ralph Retort. You can go and watch it on shows he's on. And he says, well, if people spam report me, I'm going to spam report them, which is ironically why I spam reported conservatives in the 2016-2017 period, because you guys spam reported everybody else too. Even large conservative figures would try to cancel other people. James Wood, the Guardians of the Galaxy dude, got canceled by fucking what? Cernovich digging up 10-year-old tweets, and Nick Fuentes plays the exact same game. Nick, do you acknowledge that a year ago, as recently as a year ago, that you had your audience run around and spam report people on YouTube, that you were fighting with Mr. Medicare and other people, and you would encourage people to spam report people, or are you going to deny that or not even answer it?
Really? Did you do that to Keffels and to Hassan last year?
Why are you pivoting? Wait, do you want to answer that question?
Well, answer.
No, I asked you a question. Nick, you're the freedom of the speech guy. Nick, answer the question.
Keffels and Hassan?
Nick, oh, he won't answer the question. So this is what I mean when I say they won't own their positions. They're too cowardly to own their positions. He's not going to answer it. And anyway,
dude, look, I don't want to be the Destiny dick rider here, but I gotta say, Destiny really gave everybody here a black nose tonight. I don't know who Keith Woods is, but he got a runny nose. Nicholas Fuentes got a runny nose. Tate's gone, but I mean, he probably had the most bruises on his face of fucking anybody, right? All I would ask of Destiny, honestly, is to give Mario a bloody nose too, rhetorical bloody nose. Just because I don't like him, really. I just don't like how much he lies. Just it would be fun for me. But I mean, I doubt I'm gonna get that. Sneeko's been awfully quiet, I will say.
Wait, so just to be clear, that's why
for his own, I would say, to his own advantage, he's been quiet. He should keep doing that. Maybe he'll keep winning.
He's on my blacklist. The reason why he's on my blacklist is
I wouldn't call this I wouldn't call this censorship, but Destiny, why it hasn't seemed to have worked. Like if you look at Nick's following now, despite all the censorship, did it help him in your opinion?
It's not about it. It helps him. I just don't like to I don't like to signal boost people that engage in mass reporting. And Nick's community does that like crazy.
Mass reporting against Keffels and Hassan.
Notice how he doesn't answer the question? It's because he keeps dodging.
Why did you want to flag down Porcelain? What did he do?
Because the guy's annoying, and his content should be.
Oh, so honestly, it's annoying.
His content sucks, so it shouldn't be online anymore. And I get to say that, okay? And
yeah, that's pretty clear cut, isn't it?
I get to choose. His content. He calls himself a documentarian. Give me a break. He's not a documentarian.
Are you telling me the irony bro can't detect sarcasm? Oh, really?
He's not being sarcastic. The guy thinks he's a documentarian. Okay. And I think that's hilarious because it's stupid. But no, his content sucks. And so his content should, I think we should flag you because your content sucks too.
Sure. You sure you're not going after, Porcelain because he did a Baked Alaska documentary and your ass hurt your friend got made fun of?
When was that, Jim? Was that like
let's see, you got angry. You got angry because Ethan Ralph got fucked with. You got angry because, Baked Alaska got fucked with. It sounds like you're just a little bitch running around protecting your friends.
Not really. I just hate his content. I hate his content and I think it shouldn't be online anymore. And
what a simple reason for deplatforming. I hate you. Well, there you go. What a great I wish I could use that justification to deplatform everyone I didn't like. Mr. Delight, thank you for the tier 1. I appreciate it.
You're the little bitch that's crying about it. I mean, you keep saying you're so mad. I said oh, you got DMCA'd. I don't know. Seems kind of funny.
I report when people are shitting on me, I report their streams. I report everything they have to try and get them banned.
You're just a liar. Everyone, people can post the clips. Destiny had Keffels and Hassan mass reported last year. He had a tenuous explanation. Me and Destiny collaborated.
Every time Nick yaps like this without answering my question, it's because he knows he doesn't have an answer to the question. And Nick is the one on here talking about freedom of speech. Make him answer the question. Make him answer the question.
Just wondering.
I'll leave it with him. So I think both of you haven't answered the question. But Nick, I'll give you the mic again, you and Keith, because I know Keith was waiting for a long time. Either Keith go on or we'll go to Nick.
Yeah, let me jump in here. So.
Let him ramble, he means, without answering the question.
And now another interruption. The thing is...
let me... Oh, good. So that's, let's just take a breather, please. Go ahead, Nick. Thanks, Destiny.
Thank you. So the thing is, I think the big point is I'm banned for 7 years from some platforms, banned from Twitter for 3. I get platformed on here. Mario, you, before you even put out the tweet.
By the way, if the standard is just like, I don't like your content, get banned, then there's no justification anyone could make in defense of Nick for people not brigading him endlessly to get him banned again, right? Like, there would be no defense.
He'd say, well, just on the record, I don't agree with most of what he says. We have to bring in 4 left-wing Zionist Jews on the space, and that's not good enough. Then we got to bring in Destiny, who for years has been saying for whatever.
Oh my God, is he just gonna whine about the fact that they brought on people that disagree with him? That Nicholas Fuentes got brought back onto Twitter and he immediately wasn't like, oh yes, the white race! The white race has been saved! Yes, forever, the Aryans are here! For God and Jesus and the white race. Like, is that what they wanted? Just like 12 hours of this endlessly? Like, come on.
For stupid reason, he can say, well, I'm not going to stream with him, but he is going to show up on this one when it's a big platform. And that just goes to show the disadvantage that people like myself have. You know, Destiny is on YouTube, he's on Reddit, he's on Discord, he's on Twitter. Despite saying equally awful things, jokes or not, he's engaged in mass reporting like anybody has, whether it's a year ago or 7 years ago. But a person like me, I've been banned from everything. I've been lied about by everybody, lied about by the ADL, SPLC. They've never written anything about Destiny. There's no pressure to get him banned from anything. I get restored. It's not 48 hours. I get invited onto a space where everybody practically has to sign a pledge that says, I'm not with this guy. And we got to bring in 4 other people who do most of the talking from the left to defend the State Department and the regime.
Andrew Tate
and now I'm going to be interrupted here.
Now I'm going to be interrupted.
Yeah, Brian, I'll give you. Brian, I'll let you respond right after, Nick. So I think Brian's point was, Nick, that you had a lot of. You had Alex Jones, you had Andrew Tate, you have Sneeko, you had others that were supporting your stance. So I think we tried our best to keep it balanced, but I do have to agree with you.
Like, well, the only person, it was Brian, Ed, and Destiny. Mostly Destiny. He had Andrew Tate, he had Keith Woods, he had Sneeko, he had Soleimani Ahmed, who was backing him up, making sure every question was bent towards his desires. He got all the spammed emojis he could ever want or desire. I don't know what he wants.
Like, I'll be honest, I faced the most pressure bringing you on stage, more than anyone else except probably Prime Minister Imran Khan of Pakistan and Bolsonaro.
A very clear double standard earlier when you introduced Destiny. He openly says that he hates Islam and he's Islamophobic, and nobody pushes back. There's not going to be any articles. Nobody's going to write a bill to go and say anything about Islamophobia. But then Nick says his points, that he believes that race is real and he thinks that America's a Christian country. And then somehow that's the most banned position. That's the one that's going to get articles written about it. When Myron comes on stream and he makes jokes about, you know, they make Nazi jokes, stuff like this, they automatically try to censor you and say that you believe in this stuff. And they come on here, Destiny says that you must believe in, there must be some sort of secret motive that you have, some secret hatred. But no, these people just, we like to make jokes, we like to have humor. Destiny openly says he hates Islam, and guess what's going to happen? Nothing.
It's literally it's literally not jokes. 2, I've been banned from Twitter more than any of you motherfuckers. I can't believe you guys are crying on here about Twitter bans. I'm pretty sure I've been banned from Twitter. I've been banned from Twitter. Yeah, that's great. I've got some. I'm banned from Twitch. Right, and I was banned from Twitter for longer than you and Fuentes over here combined. And you guys lie about why you get banned from your platforms anyway. Just like Nick Fuentes won't answer why he's on my blacklist. He also lies about why he got no fly listed. It was because he was fighting with a flight attendant.
Let's move away from these.
Oh, is that true? I don't know if that's true, but now that's become gospel.
Let me
go ahead, Sneeko. Go ahead.
One more point is that Nick's right. I mean, I hosted a bunch of panels back in 2022 when I first learned about Nick and his movement about America First. And the reason they try to silence him so much is because his position ultimately is that we should stop funding Israel. It's that simple. That's why he's so censored, is because he wants...
That's why there are enough public commentators online, on Twitter, on social media saying don't fund Israel. There are tons of them. Hassan's one of them. Other ones are out there. Hell, we just found out that we've stopped sending offensive bombs to Israel like a week ago. So I guess you can throw a few government officials maybe in there too. There is a ton of people who believe that, who are online and are able to operate. The reason Nick Fuentes is getting banned isn't because he was super critical of Israel. It's because he's anti-Semitic, racist, and says crazy, unhinged stuff that gets him banned. That's why he gets banned.
points out a very specific flaw that American politicians have, is that they all have to have an undying allegiance to Israel, and we don't even know why they're our greatest ally. People defend this country so much, and they don't even know where it is on a map. The fact that he calls this out so much, that's what bothers him. And so they try to blacklist him, they try to censor him nonstop, but every time he gets a new angle of popularity, when people start to admit that his talking points have been correct for so long, they immediately hijack the stream. They'll come in there when he comes on Fresh and Fit, Destiny has to debate him. When I go debate XQC, Destiny has to jump in.
Look, if I get in this call, do you want to join just for a little bit?
What call? What are you doing?
I'm trying to get in a call with Destiny and XQC.
When Nick gets reinstated on Twitter for the first day and surpasses him in followers in 24 hours, who needs to come in? Can any of you even remember what all the yapping from 30 minutes was about the Wikipedia articles? I can't.
Listen, we all know that you have trouble paying attention. That's why you haven't learned anything about the religion you're grifting in for the past year. But to be clear, Mario invited me. He literally DM'd me like 2 hours ago. So Mario is the Jew in this circumstance. Just to be clear, okay? He's the one that's controlled, by the way.
I'll take the blame. But Keith, I want to ask you a question. You and Brian, then we'll go to Nick for that same question. Why, Keith, in your opinion, was Nick banned from Twitter and all other social media companies?
Oh my God. Okay, I don't care anymore. We did 1 hour and 10. I'm tapping out. Okay, can you guys do this Chinese water torture longer than I can? If you can, I don't find it impressive. I honestly find it sad. Man. I feel like a bunch of information both entered and exited my head within the last hour, and there's not really many concepts I can grab from this. This is what I'll grab from it. Interruptions were terrible. Not a fan of the moderation. Not a fan of the questions. A lot of the follow-up questions were just the same questions rephrased, hoping for controversy. Man. Yeah, no, I was not a fan. I was not a fan of this at all. And still somehow, we got a few good moments out of it. My goodness. Andrew Tate, literally completely out of his depth. Might actually be a worse debater than Sneeko, and that is saying something. Might be slightly better than Sneeko. I don't know. He's lost now canonically to Hassan and Destiny, which is a combination that should not be possible, but is possible. If it's going to be Hassan, Destiny, then 5 to 10 to 15 years in the Romanian prison system, gotta say, L to L to L. As for Sneeko, he kept his mouth shut for the majority of this. That was smart on his part. I call him the winner of the other side. Keith Woods, don't care. Nicholas Fuentes, I mean, outside of like the lies we caught him in, either about the nuclear power plant or just his lack of knowledge about even the stories that he's bringing up, for example, the bounties on soldiers in Afghanistan, which he thought were soldiers in Iraq, which, I mean, I don't know how that would even work, but whatever. I just think that it seemed to me that Nicholas Fuentes really had his knickers in a twist. And he really didn't like the fact that he was brought on here and then challenged in these ways. He really doesn't like being challenged in these ways, at least on the public platform like this. And being made to come out and say, I am not a supporter of American values. I am against Americanism. I want a theocracy. Also being pointed out as being somebody who's supported deplatforming while now whinging and whining about his own deplatforming when he was supporting it very recently, and I would not be surprised to find him to support it soon again. I don't know, man. I would say this is probably one of the worst performances by Nick Fuentes, and at a moment when he should be like soaring above the skies and stuff. I even think I saw George Santos comment on this, saying that he thought Destiny was making decent points, which says something, which is either a huge condemnation of Destiny or somehow praise. Either way, hell of a discussion.